Okay, good morning. This is the presentations for RFP-23-24449, ATMS software and ATC hardware. My name is Sharon Spellman and I'm the procurement analyst for this project. At this time, I would like each committee member to introduce themselves, beginning with the committee chair.
William Johnson, committee chairman.
Julie Scanlon.
Brian Sias.
And anyone else in the room, please identify yourselves.
Leland Dykes, Technical Services.
Bob County Manager, Transportation Engineer.
Steve Garvey with Alliant Engineering.
Joe Molinaro with Iteris.
Brian Bickford, Procurement Services.
Thank you. Active participation will be for the committee members and the presentation team only. For the record, all presentations are being recorded and the recordings will be available after presentations and the public meeting have concluded. Please be advised that the cone of silence is still in effect and shall the end of earlier 5 business days where the county posts its notice of intent to award the contract associated with this solicitation or on the date the procurement is then canceled by the county. Any questions, comments, and concerns must be directed to my attention and my attention only. The schedule for today will be as such. Presentations will be up to 60 minutes. There will be additional time for questions and answers up to 25 minutes. There will be a break for approximately 15 minutes, and then a live demonstration up to 70 minutes. There may be additional time for questions and answers at the end of that should time allow. If you choose to use all of your time, that is your choice. If you choose to eliminate some of your time and move on to the next portion of the presentation, that is also your choice. At this time, I will turn it over to Econolite Systems, Inc., and they may take it from here, and please introduce yourselves.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sharon, you mentioned 25 minutes at the end. Do you want to make that interactive or 60 minutes of us dissertating and then 25 minutes followed, or?
I will leave that up to the evaluation committee on whether they want to just ask questions and have you answer, or there's an interactive period between you two.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask the folks from Econolite that are on the phone or on Teams to take their cameras off, and then after we introduce everybody that we got here and on the phone, I'll ask them to turn their cameras off just to conserve a little bit of bandwidth and make sure everything's working the way we want it to work. My name's John Ringler. I started with Econolite in 2011. I took a short sabbatical for a couple of years and just recently came back. And I'm Vice President of Business Development. We've also got Mark Case. Mark Case is also a Vice President. He's local here in Florida. And Mark runs our professional services group for the East Coast. And you all know Kyle Love. Kyle Love is our software sales support guy. I just got to know Kyle the last couple of weeks and I've really enjoyed working with him, as I'm sure you all have in the past as well. On the phone now, if the folks that are on the phone from Econolite would please turn on their cameras, we'll introduce them. And then there will be a couple other folks that I've got listed that will probably join throughout the course of the day just for some subject matter expertise. So we've got Jim Madden. Jim Madden is our Vice President of the Eastern Region. We've got Connie Braithwaite, who's also here in Florida. Who else? I think Alan Baker is on the phone. Getting good. And Ron DeSimone, I saw him a little bit earlier. Mark Porter is here and Brian Briggs. Some of these folks are just having lunch. Some of them are just getting up. And the folks that will join us a little bit later from California, I'm sure, are in their second REM and be waking up soon. All right, I want to focus in on our. Okay, good. Focus in on our Florida team. Locally here in Florida, I've already mentioned Connie. Connie's up in the Jacksonville area. We've got Steve Wampler, who runs our repair center out of St. Augustine, Florida. Jenny's in the Orlando area, and she supports Connie on the sales side. Ron DeSimone is mislocated. He's actually up in the Cocoa Beach area, but Ron's on the phone as well. I already mentioned Mark Case. You're down in the Lee County, or yeah, okay, Lee County area. And then we've got Randy Clark and Alan Baker as well on the team. I'm also representing this team. We talked about Jim Madden. Who else do we have here? It's a little bit small for me to read, but Mark Case and Mark Porter is on the phone as well. He's, I think, currently in Idaho, just attending a similar presentation there. A couple announcements that I'd like to make. Thank you very much. We were just awarded the ITS maintenance contract in Hillsborough County. Very pleased to have that contract and looking forward to getting that kicked off here in the next couple of weeks. We're very active in bidding other opportunities, and we bid the systems parts contract, and we're looking forward to a favorable solution there. And then because of all the work that we're doing in this area and the work that we're doing specifically with Hillsborough County, we are very pleased to announce that we will be opening up an office. We're losing this project, but we will be opening up a permanent office here in Hillsborough County in the next couple of months and adding to our existing Florida team. Sharon's already gone over the agenda, but come on, here we go. Sharon's already gone over the agenda. We will spend 60 minutes. I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to interrupt us and ask some questions, and we'll take a little bit of that 25-minute time. We'll have a little bit of break, and we want to really focus in on demonstration and less presentation, but we will have that hands-on demonstration for you after this initial 60 minutes, and then there's some time left over for any additional questions that y'all may have. You may have heard of this new name recently, Umuvity. Umuvity is a merger of PTV Group, which is a planning software company. You probably use their software here, BSIM and BISM, and Econolite. And we believe that the merger of these two companies, bringing the planning, the operational, the traffic management, and world-class planning software to into a single company, really provides us some unique advantages in the industry to take advantage of what I would consider an inflection point of where we are, and I might talk about that a little bit later. But now that we are a combined company, we can lay claim to 150,000 cabinets deployed throughout North America, 120,000 controllers, which gives us about 35 to 40% of the total market share. Over 400 central systems have been installed, and that doesn't include the closed loop systems. 160,000 traffic sensors have been deployed by Econolite with PTV, doing businesses and software users in 2,500 cities across the world in 120 countries. And what that looks like globally is a presence in 6 out of 7 continents. And I would claim 100% of all the continents that actually have traffic signals. So it's a fairly broad depth of experience, capabilities, and as we mentioned earlier, about 1,500 total employees across the globe. But specifically to North America, 400 some odd systems deployed in Canada, mostly here in the United States. As we drill down a little bit deeper and see what that specifically means to you, 17 systems deployed throughout the states using either Centrax or Centrax Mobility, and we'll also talk about that, representing about 4,000 intersections under operational control in the state of Florida. And drilling down even a little bit deeper into this area of the world, we've got about 1,700 intersections in the Tampa. Come on,
You're 2 slides ahead.
there we go.
No, it's just.
There we go.
It's okay.
Wow, it is Aggie. Come on,
You're just giving a little preview for the next slide.
how do I do this? It's still out there. That is really slow. But moving on, we will adapt. In the Tampa metropolitan service area, we have about 1,700 intersections under control, representing Pasco County, Clearwater, there it is, Tampa, Nellis County, and St. Petersburg. And if we then looked at the number of intersections we've got under control in FDOT District 7, we would add Hernando County, Florida, adding another 100 intersections licensed, almost 1,800 intersections just in this area that we have under operational control. And then throughout the rest of the state of Florida, the balance of the systems, I think there's an 11 more and 4,000 intersections. I'm almost reluctant to do this, but I'll try. Okay. It's going to be a little bit slow. You're going to hear a lot today about Centrax 2.0 and Centrax Mobility. And I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the differences between Centrax 2.0 and Centrax Mobility. But from your perspective, it's a singular platform that's going to come together to provide all the requirements that you identified in the terms of reference. There it is. So as we look at Centrax 2.0, was originally developed back in 2009. So it's got 15 years of experience, 400 some odd customers across North America are using Centrax 2.0. It is a client server architecture. Some people might claim that they put the server up in the cloud, that it's cloud-based. It's not. We've done that as well. In fact, we run the maintenance management system on Centrac Mobility for the state of, help me out here. Iowa, and one other in for our peers in Louisiana. I knew it was one of the southern states. We deliver Centrac's Mobility as a perpetual license. So we price that into this, our proposal. You will get Centrac's 2.0 as a perpetual license. You can keep it forever. As we upgrade it, you'll get the licenses and the upgrades for Centrac's 2.0. Centrac's Mobility started off as a web-hosted, truly web-hosted environment where we were presenting our signal performance measures. I believe we were the first to actually do that on the web, providing the signal performance measures. To do that, we are using a microservices architecture. We use Kubernetes in the cloud. And we brought our signal performance measures, like I said, into that environment. And as we looked at that, we said, well, we've got this great map and it's got great signal performance measures and great charts and graphs to identify where we might have issues in the system. Wouldn't it be cool if we could actually add the ATMS functionality into that? We've been doing that over the last couple of years. We've made a lot of progress. You're going to see that as part of the demonstration. That's pretty exciting. And eventually we do see Centrac Mobility as a replacement to Centrac 2.0. The good news for you is you're going to get both of them. And when you decide that you want to retire Centrac's 2.0, it's going to be a nice, easy migration just to step into the web environment, if that's what you choose to do. And you'll be able to use Centrac's Mobility at that point forward. Centrac's Mobility is delivered as software as a service. Again, it's priced in for the 7-year term of this contract. And can be extended on an annual basis or however you want to price that down the road. Okay. So moving on, why should you select Econolite? I think there's several different reasons here, but I'm going to go through each one of them. Support. In my mind, I think we've got the largest support team of any manufacturer that's out there right now. And Mark's going to show you an organization chart that lists all the people on the software side, the hardware side of our business that provide support to our systems and services. We've also obviously got the Econolite Florida team here as well. Connie Braithwaite is just one of our best salespersons out there right now, and she takes great care of the customers here in Florida. Future proof. I talked a little bit about Centrac's 2.0 and Centrac's Mobility and being able to step from that client server environment into a cloud services environment. And that's, obviously entirely up to you, but it gives you that hedge against early obsolescence to move into that future state environment where you combine the signal performance measure and the ATMS functionality all on a singular platform. Interoperability. A lot of folks will say that Econolite's a proprietary system, and it's not. We have always been a good steward in the industry and how we interoperate with others. If anybody gives us a call and says we want your MIBs so that we can represent your MIBs on our site, we'll do that. And vice versa. If the customer wants somebody else's controller that they want to use Centrac's, be interoperable there as well. And it doesn't just extend to different firmwares, different controllers, and different central systems, but it also extends to how we partner in the industry with folks like Dirk and with folks like all the folks that are providing connected vehicle radios that are out there as well. So we do claim complete interoperability and meeting the needs of our customers. Regionality. We've got 5 systems right here in the Tampa Metropolitan Service Area. And building this multi-jurisdictional control, which Kyle's going to talk a little bit about in his presentation. I don't know if we're going to demonstrate it for you or not, but some real opportunities for you to share information with the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, actually control their signals, if that's what your MOU says that they will allow you to do, and vice versa. But the business rules of how that's established are completely up to you as well. Lead times. We believe that we have the shortest lead times in the industry. If you need a controller, it's weeks, not months, not years. Supply chain has hit every manufacturer in the industry quite hard recently. Econolite's made the investment in the inventory in order to provide services to our customers. And I want to thank you guys specifically. You actually laid out in your terms of reference how you might like to deploy over years. That's a huge benefit as we can provide that lead time to our manufacturing facility to make sure that the controllers, the cabinets, whatever you're buying from us, can be delivered when you need them. I mentioned cloud services. I do believe that we are the only cloud services environment, truly cloud services environment that's out there. And by that, I'm going to get into a little bit of detail And if you have specific questions, we have Brian Griggs on the line. But I mentioned microservices, I mentioned Kubernetes. Interestingly, we might prefer the Azure cloud to host in, but we can also host in Amazon Web Services, if that's what you choose. So we can utilize those public clouds. We can also use a private cloud. So if you decide to install on-premise cloud system here, or use your IT department here for those cloud services, we're happy to install there as well. I don't know of any other manufacturer that can do that, but I could be wrong, because sometimes competitive intelligence is hard to come by, and maybe you can tell me after you make a selection here. And stability. Econolite's been in business for our 91st year, 2024. And in 1933, we actually started the company with a fairly simple piece of technology by today's standards, but it was a stop sign with a flashing beacon on it that would not flash during the day. You could actually see the stop sign. So interesting back then, but it was an innovation in the industry in 1933 that was interesting and unique, and it was interesting and unique enough to allow us to formulate the company. But since then, we've not stopped innovating. So we may be an old company, but I do consider us a company that continues to innovate in the industry. And I will claim rights. The first digital controller was manufactured by Econolite. The first controller with the Microsoft processor was manufactured by Econolite. We were the first to support widespread application of closed loop systems. We were the first NEMA TS2 Type 1 cabinet. We were the first to deploy wide area video protection. The first to support NTC-IP, which is of course an interoperable standard. We co-developed the high resolution data set and the default standard with Purdue University back in 2010, 2011 or so. And I believe that we were the first to deploy signal performance measures in the cloud and on a system. We're also the first and only manufacturer to take the high resolution data that we're going to show you this here in a little bit, to take that high resolution data and turn it into cycle splits and offsets. So you can automatically develop time plans using that high resolution data versus anecdotal data, where there used to be that traffic engineer who sit on the corner of the street counting cars going left through and right on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Now we're actually using that high resolution data that we're collecting 10 times per second. And rather than taking a statistical sample, we're actually measuring the area under the curve and allowing us to create those cycle splits and offsets, which are delivering some really incredible benefits for us. Not only do we do cycle splits and offsets, but we're going to recommend sequence adjustments we do as well, if we believe that's going to help the performance of the intersections and better optimize them. So you guys asked 6 very specific questions. I'm just going to kind of highlight those here real quick. And we'll come back at the end to make sure that we've answered all those questions. And you'll see throughout the course of the presentation from Mark and Kyle that, when we believe we're answering one of these questions, we're going to bring up the big question 1 in the question. But question 1 was, how are we going to improve safety and effectiveness? Question 2 is a question about the multi-jurisdictional control. Question 3 is, how are we going to integrate with AI and the preemption system, and what kind of priority might we do? Question 4, how are we integrated in the connected vehicle world? We'll talk a little bit about that. Question 5, Mark's going to talk about our superior customer support, and how we're going to make sure that that any issues that you may have had in the past, we're going to set those to rest and make sure that we're providing that support to you. And the final question is the implementation approach, and staffing, and Mark's going to answer that as well. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and we'll go over questions 5 and 6 in no particular order.
All right, thanks, John. So the first, yeah, that worked pretty good. So this is our work chart kind of for how we anticipate for the project proceeding. So we've broken this up. So again, I'm Mark Case. I'm located here in Florida, PE. About over 35 years of experience in Florida for about 7 years. I will work with the rest of this team, which I work with on a lot of other projects, especially locally here. So working on Tampa ATMS, bringing Clearwater onto Centrax right now. The I-275 project, the I-4 frame project. So I'm involved in all of them with a lot of members of this team here. So a lot of us are working on all those projects that are right here in Hillsborough County area. So we've broken this the scope of work up into specific tasks here. We will obviously be furnishing the ATC controllers that we've been talking about, our codevaults, that you'll see here a little bit later in our presentation. Connie will take the lead on that, obviously. Then the proof of concept, which is written right into the requirements. And Kyle will be helping quite a bit with that, plus some of the engineers I work with on all the other projects. Then obviously we'll be moving over to Centrox. So you have your existing ATMS now. You need to move over to another system, which we hope is Centrox. And a lot of these names that you've seen before, many of you have seen them on other projects, Nick Ullman, Hangak, Clay Fuchs, people like that will be working with this project as well. And then there's the implementation to put ATMS now out into the system. But most importantly, I think, is the support. And we've got about 8 names listed there. Those are just 8 of the dozens of people we could have probably listed there. You may recognize some of these names. A lot of them concentrate on mobility. So as we developed the mobility portion of the Centrox platform that John mentioned just a few moments ago, we brought on specific staff that have been focused on the mobility platform, and they're listed here under the support. And then obviously at the end, there'll be some testing and training, and that's very important, and not just for when you first purchase the system, but for in the future. There are a couple tasks that will work together with you guys. Obviously, I think you mentioned that you'll do the database conversion to the controller installs, so we'll work together with you. And that's the box up there on the left. Excuse me, the upper right. Look at that, John. All right, just bringing it down just a little bit more. This is one of the graphics that that was in the proposal. This is just showing you the local team. Now, when this was put together, we were trying to show how we were all local within, either minutes or hours from Hillsborough County. In full disclosure, Kyle has moved since this happened, but because of the code of silence, we obviously didn't tell you. But we're telling you here today that Kyle is not less than 1 hour away from the project, but he is part of our Florida team still, obviously. Next slide. Yeah, if we have a really long delay, I was going to say that you did hear John say automatically. In case you thought maybe that was something, yeah, so that can come up in Q&A later.
If anybody here as the evaluator is logged in and not utilizing your computer, if they log out, it might be focused on. Just as a-
If you're on the teams, are you on the
if you're
teams?
logged
meeting?
into that team. meeting.
I'm not yet.
So.
Okay. All right, so question 6, as John mentioned, we're going to try to intersperse these throughout as they come up. Question 6 had to do with implementation approach and how our proposed project teams best equipped to ensure support for both the ATMS side and the ATC side. So a lot of clients, when we go to them, we talk about the fact, Connie and I usually go together, and we talk about the fact that we're hand in glove, which we are. So we work all these projects that I mentioned just a little bit earlier, Pasco and most of the projects throughout the state. We have components that where Connie and her team and my team work together. But the biggest, in terms of the addressing this on both the ATMS and the ATC side, is about how we actually perform the work. So there is a project management. I'll dive into that one just a little bit later with one slide. But then we have it all spelled out about how the project would go from the initiation of purchasing the computers and doing the proof of concept all the way through training, and then your warranty period, which is for the 7 years.
Trying to anticipate when you're gonna finish the slide. So
Yeah, I know, this is. So the implementation approach, pretty standard, but extremely important. Most of those projects that I just mentioned that we work on, Clearwater, I-275, the frame, we all have biweekly meetings that we're holding. I mean, we're down to probably 15, 20 minutes on the biweekly meetings because everybody knows exactly what's coming up. We have the action items in there. And we do that on a very routine basis, and we spell out, it started with the schedule, started with the project plan in the beginning, which is the same thing we'll do here. Obviously, the project startup, going right into review and QC. This is where all our internal support comes in. So all those people that John mentioned that work in other offices, in addition to the Florida team, are in there for our quality control on both the ATMS and the ATC side, then obviously the delivery side. The execution. There we go. There we go. All right. So you had another question about how we provide superior customer support. It really comes down to, since it was question 5, many of you have heard this before, the 5 Ps. So proper planning prevents poor performance. You haven't. So really it comes down to our project management to answer that question. It comes down to our project management and our project team. We'll start off with that project plan that we'll put together right up front. And what the intention there to do is to manage everybody's expectations coming into the project and then to follow them. So plan the work, work the plan is the way I like to say it. The bi-weekly meetings that I just mentioned a little while ago and then the proof of concept. And I just wanted to mention a little bit on this project team. So we've talked about a few times, all the folks that are on the call here. Oops. Okay, well, 6 of those people who were in that large organization, we've actually worked together already for 5 years on projects here in Florida. Just pointing that out there. And then, of course, we bring in people like Kyle and Alan and Randy Clark to help us specifically with opportunities like this. So the last thing I'll really talk about here is this proof of concept, which is the first 60 days, and I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. We will develop a transition plan. It's listed right into the requirements that will be with your IT department. All right, that's going to be very important. We found that obviously on a lot of these types of projects. Then as we install Centrax, we'll do 5 intersections. You guys, I think, will do database conversions for that. And then there is an outline in there. We've spelled it out in our scope of work for the verification approach, specifically the interface control document, or what requirements are met, what you're not met, and we'll meet with you and find out exactly what is it that you want to see as you convert off of ATMS now to Centrax. And then the others that are listed there, the implementation schedule, verification plan, and then we do have a standard acceptance test, which we've developed over all those Centrax platform installations that John mentioned a little bit earlier. We'll work off of that. We'll modify it as required to meet your needs. We'll do that right up front, not only for the acceptance test at the end of the project, but obviously for the proof of concept of those first 5 intersections.
Well, thanks, Mark. Thanks everybody for having us today. My name is Kyle once again. Let's dive right into features and functions of the ATMS and ATC system we're presenting for you today. As they've indicated, we like to start with some of these questions. Some of these can be answered in 1 or 2 slides. Some of them require a few more. So just a heads up on this one. I will be answering this over a few slides as we proceed through. Okay. It does deserve a comprehensive overview. The ATMS platform and the next generation ATC are definitely prepared to help with the mobility and safety of the general motoring public. See if it'll go. All right, so gentlemen alluded to this earlier. We do have the Centrax and mobility platform coming together to create a hybrid solution here for you. This will empower agencies such as yourself, that incredible flexibility and deployment, and then delivering that most functionality in the industry. The Centrax mobility platform is proven state-of-the-art ATMS platform. It's been around for, as we saw, 15 years. It's easy to deploy, it's easy to learn, it's easy to use. Many of you in the room have some experience, at least with the ATMS platform. Modular components can be deployed for third-party technologies, not limiting us and making us exclusive to ourselves. It meets the county's needs with both of these platforms together for the immediate requirements and then future desired outcomes. We've got years and years of proven field efforts, lots of history of support. Taking a look at the Centrax timeline, I really like this graphic. This is one of my favorites. It's a lot and all encompassing here, and this is an overview of our 15 years. Along the way, you can see some really impressive things that we actually led the industry and paved the way for some of our competitors. Being able to remote into the front panel, Centrax Priority and SPM being a couple of examples. If we dive in a little closer and look at the last just 6-7 years, you can see how busy, well, in just a minute you can.
You can see how busy.
I can see how busy you've been.
There you go.
There it goes. Okay. Yeah, a closer look at this shows how hard they've been making our gifted developers work to provide the next level of pattern optimization, center to center, those really advanced features that everybody's looking for in the ATMS. It got ahead. Apologize, folks. Okay, I'll start here. Centrax ATMS, we're just going to review some of the on-premise ATMS features. Again, a lot of you in the room are familiar with the system already, having used it throughout your career. Easy to use and install and configure. We do have remote software upgrades and an established support team. Another graphic coming up here is going to show us some intersection monitoring. Give us an example of what you might see if you were to click on an individual intersection. Not faded out like that.
It'll pop in.
It will. And then we also provide those dynamic reports and maps that a lot of industry or a lot of entities look for and rely on. There it is. Nice and pretty. So Centrax Mobility, we've talked a little bit about this before. I'll give some time for the slide to come up and we'll review. Centrax Mobility evolved out of Centrax SPM platform. We've got these high resolution data. It's available since 2010. We partnered with Purdue University to establish many of those first enumerations. We looked to take that SPM data and do something with it. And then we recognized the value in having that on the cloud and having unneeded storage for it and a lot less to deal with. So we evolved out of the SPM platform and created the cloud mobility platform. So this combines your ATMS basic function features with all of the signal performance managers, metrics, insights that you'd be looking for to improve your systems. Coming up next, we're going to see an overview of what the mobility system looks like from the cloud perspective in just a minute. We're also going to go through this with a demo, so I'm not going to spend too much time looking at the visuals here.
Yeah. We'll wait for the screen though.
I know, yeah. I can talk about, for a second anyways, Centrax Mobility. It's secure, as we've already talked about a little bit. It's a cloud-based system, the software as a service platform. It leverages Microsoft's Azure cloud computing services, and it provides that FedRAMP compliant data storage for agencies, the highest level of data security in the industry. There it is. You can see on this screen here, this is our overview page. I'll go ahead and click on the next slide in hopes that we get there quickly. Web access is available. You can pull this up from a browser on your phone, on your laptop, on a computer at your office. And it's got a really nice visual with some metrics. As I talked about earlier, in addition to the SPM functions and all the data available from that high res, we've also incorporated device management, similar to what you would see in the ATMS on-premise solution. At this point, we are porting in all of the features and functions that are native to the Centrax ATMS into mobility to kind of make an all-encompassing platform. So some of those examples would be database editor, map editor, remote front panel. Again, one of my favorite things is remote front panel. Really allows us some good visualization of what's going on at the intersection. The device management is going to include travel time and incidences at no cost, with no additional cost, with no additional infrastructure. All this data is fleet data and provided through TomTom. Talking quickly about the SPMs that we use mobility for. Again, this is the high resolution data collection and analytics software. It allows us to look not only as timing engineers or timing professionals or traffic professionals at what opportunities we might have to improve traffic, but allows us to optimize some of that and automate some of it in the background, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Transforming that high resolution data into that measurable, actionable results. In just a moment on the screen, you're going to see some examples of some of the metric outputs that we have. We do have over 25 different reports available. Some examples would be arrival on greens, a Purdue coordination diagram, and vehicle delays. Now we have this SPM data and we're able to quantify these metrics and display them for you in an easy read, user-friendly system. But what can we do with it beyond that? Where can we be proactive? Unique to Econolite, we've developed a background plan generator we call Pattern Optimizer. Pattern Optimizer it optimizes the offsets, cycle, and split of all the signals within a corridor to minimize delay, to minimize that and traffic stops. Using algorithms and engineering metrics like lean pivot, green occupancy ratio, red occupancy ratio, we are able to look at the cycle offset split and really make those good decisions, as well as lead lag sequencing. This really empowers the engineering staff to be able to implement calculated improvements, resulting in the safer mobility and safer for the roadway users. So this is kind of like a cheat code for the engineers in the room. We can take a look at what this is going to provide for us weekly as far as estimates. It will give us predictions and outcomes to show us what we might be able to improve. Sort of like having an engineer looking at the data all the time, as opposed to just periodically once a week, twice a week over the course of time. An example of Pattern Optimizer up here. I did bring this screen on for a specific reason. You can see down the bottom here, we have predicted initial times, predicted if we do implement what it suggests, and then an easy button right at the top where we can define, revert these changes if we like them. Because we never sit still at Econolite, taking it a step further, we looked at the pattern optimizer and said, this is great for the corridors that use a little bit of optimization here and there, need a little tweaking. Some of the more difficult corridors, we needed another solution. So we said, hey, why don't we take this great information we have, let's apply it every 3 cycles and let's update the cycle offset split in an adaptive scenario. And that's what we call adaptive. It's the next generation of adaptive signal control. It optimizes cycle offset splits using those SPMs. Automatically changes only if needed. If it doesn't determine it needs a change, it keeps doing exactly what it's doing every 3 cycles with a great amount of user-defined thresholds, which we'll go over during the demo as well.
I wanna, if I can, just interrupt real quick.
Please.
Just really kind of underscore this point. In the pattern optimization world, the traffic engineer is in the loop. So the computer is going to calculate, use your high resolution data and assess what the cycle split and offset should be. It's going to tell you how you're currently performing. And it's going to tell you how you might perform based upon what it thinks the results might be, right? And it's going to show you those results. Now, if you like those results, the traffic engineer gets to say, yeah, I like it. Most of the customers that are using this actually are cranking out new timing plans every week. Okay, just having those timing plans there and available for use. Once you put that timing plan in, we're still going to continue to measure. We're doing the after analysis for you as well, using that high resolution data so we can compare the after results to what you actually before. And if you didn't like it, it didn't result in what the computer thought it was going to result in, you revert it and put in another timing plan that you know it does work better. So entirely up to you. In the adaptive world, we just take the traffic engineer out of that loop, and we do this now for you automatically or magically every cycle.
Yeah, but as John indicated, it does provide a really nice summary of the changes implemented with those outcomes, if you do choose to implement them.
Real quick, are we good with asking questions now, rather?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, I just,
Ask away.
so you mentioned that every 3 cycles, so what happens if it makes a change, it doesn't like the change?
Well, it's checking to see ahead of time if it's gonna like the change.
Okay.
If it has a failure for some reason, let's say the intersection's in transition or it didn't have enough green time for one of the cycles, it's just gonna skip and it's gonna go to the next one. It's gonna keep exactly what it has. If there's anything that it looks like it might have a problem, just keeps what it already has. It tries again another 3 minutes.
Okay, what I'm saying, we'll revert back basically, so say it made a change and it sees like, oh, whoopsies, I gave that left turn way too much time. Will it just go back to what it did previously and try again, or is it?
No, it's going to optimize based on what the data says right now. So it's always looking forward. So in the adaptive world, you're adapting every cycle, so it doesn't necessarily go back.
Right, so that's what I'm asking, because I mean, with adaptive, it's a change on top of a change on top of a change, and sometimes changing on top of too many changes causes problems, so that's what I was just trying to.
It does, and we'll get to in the demo. I think it's a really important question, and I think this is a good time to address it. There are incredible user-defined thresholds that say you can only go up or down 10 seconds for this many cycles of this percentage of the VDC. I mean, it goes deep to let you really optimize what's going to happen and take control of it and change that along the way if you see you need it.
But I think just add something to Julie's point, if you set it to start at 6 a.m., which is kind of typical what we see, the next day, it's going to start at your patterns that you already have set at 6 a.m. It's not going to say, okay, well, at 3 yesterday, I ended with this. No, it's going to go back to the pattern you set at 6 and we'll start over again, because you're trying to change.
Okay.
And this is a good place, Julie. I appreciate you calling my attention to that. I will ramble on and not let you guys ask questions if you let me. So this is a great place. We're about to go into question 2 here with interoperability. Are there any questions from anything that you've heard so far? Keep in mind, we do have some demo time as well to get real specific.
We have that high resolution metric data, and you have all the charts to see how things are performing. And then we've got basically suggested changes and that you can implement, and then obviously you'll get new metrics. So you can look at the before and after data, but does it have a built-in delta comparison so that you can actually see not just the new data and the old data, but the difference in the data automatically? How did this actually change and improve? Because I think that's more humanly consumable than just looking at raw data.
We're gonna elevate that to vehicle delay and use that as a metric. And we're going to show you what the percentages increase or decrease per movement are. And in a pattern optimization, it will allow you to say, yeah, I think that's enough improvement. Go ahead and download the timing plan. So it does show you the before and the afters. Before, what we think results are, and if you do decide to implement, what actually happened.
I would like to see like actual delta comparisons. So usually when we make changes, we always want to look at deltas. So we don't, it just makes it so that we have a comparable metric so that we can say each change we made. made this much of an impact, and then it takes all the legwork out of just looking at raw data and determining if it was better.
There's a report or a tab on Centrax mobility, and I think we can show you that, the compare tab.
Yeah, I
And
wish-
maybe when we do the demonstration, we'll actually show you how you're looking at various different metrics. And you would be able to see your before and after, because you can pick the week before, or the week after, and look what changed
The
across the
comparison
spectrum.
the comparison tool is pretty robust. It allows you to pick any range of times, any days of the week. If you want to pick a whole month and only look at Mondays, it's very easy like that. It lines up before and after two ranges over the top of each other and gives you all those metrics in their raw value. So I'm not sure I'm 100% going to answer the question with just that explanation, but I think that will allow you to have those comparisons.
It would allow us to manually compare. Yeah, I was looking for more of an automated, smarter way to do it, but
Once we get into it and we're diving in there, let's see if those two things are linking up, and maybe we'll be able to work out and see where we land.
I do have one last question.
Sure.
So you mentioned that Centrax 2.0 and mobility together, they have all requirements. And that some of them right now are the cloud mobility, some of them are still the Centrax. So when do you plan to have everything on the cloud
On
side?
the mobility side, probably within the next 2 years is what our roadmap is starting to show. In developing that roadmap, it becomes a fairly complex topic, because there's so many features and functions within Centrax 2.0. And there's no mechanism in the client server world to see which features and functions people are actually using. So the question becomes, how do we survey, canvas our customer set so that we can actually say, is there a feature here that nobody's using that we just deprecated, not spend time on? It becomes a kind of an interesting roadmap discussion. Or is there a feature here that everybody's using that we really want to focus on and maybe enhance and improve?
But and a follow-up question, you also mentioned that we could migrate if we decide to. Does that mean that we're gonna have to go ahead and wire the new software, or is this something that will be included?
It's included, yeah. And what we'll end up doing is we'll stand up an instance of Centrax 2.0 for you, and it'll be running in that perpetual license. And we'll set up a parallel system for you that is Centrax mobility. We'll share data where we can share data, but they're likely two separate databases in two separate areas, one in the server someplace and one in the cloud someplace. And we'll manage that for you and set it up all for you to give you the training to make sure that it's managed moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else? Good. Okay, see how fast it moves on. We're going to move on to question 2 here. Question 2 has to do with interoperability. Multi-jurisdictional interoperability it addresses question 2. It's a prime example of what we can do right here behind this. There we go. This is the center-to-center instance, server-to-server instance in Centennial, Colorado. You can see some really convoluted, kind of complex jurisdictional boundaries here. This has several different coordinated corridors crossing multiple different jurisdictions. It's easily handled by the server-to-server and Econolite's capable staff.
We show you this because we don't think there's a more complex area. Recognize that you guys may also want to share multi-jurisdictional control privileges with yours as well. Centennial's really complex.
Yeah, it is.
I have a question regarding that. I understand the interoperability and ability to share, but is there a function that allows us to only share like maybe certain signals?
Sure.
So I can see all of City of Tampa signals, but is there a function to where I can or they can only share, those signals where those critical, jurisdictional points are, and not everything. So is it all or nothing, or do I have the ability to pick and choose?
It's layered, and maybe the best way to think about it is a set of user privileges that you might share internally just with your own signals, what the technicians can do, what the engineers may, what your political leaders may be able to see or do. And the same would apply that if you're sharing signals with Tampa, which signals, what level of control, becomes a fairly complicated user privileges discussion. And then once we have that discussion at the engineering level, then you want to codify it in an MOU so that now we understand contractually how we're actually going to perform for me.
All right. Thank you.
And to that point, William, this could definitely be a useful option for Hillsborough County. I know that Hillsborough Avenue and Fowler, there's multiple different corridors to go in and out of jurisdictions through City of Tampa back into Hillsborough County. And we do have a lot of those business rules that we set up ahead of time. I'm going to touch on that. There are permission levels that we can set from the operational control to really give that that shared experience while maintaining all of your own security and your own, your own databases, all your own integrity of your data. Moving on, looking at question 3 here, we're going to talk about a priority solution a little bit. Specifically, we asked here for expansion to provide the signal priority with AI. Econolite has worked with AI on several projects. We're interoperable with them, and there would be no additional costs and no infrastructure changes to continue on with the AI solution. The controller programming is really all that's needed on our end. Now, we do have our own priority product, as I'm sure some of you are familiar with. EOS uses the SCP, 10 levels of different classifications to provide that elegant solution. We do believe that Econolite's priority can really come along and be complementary to the AI application. So a smarter priority, I'm not going to read through all of these. This is a really nice breakdown of kind of the pluses and minuses. Our priority looks to not break coordination. We want to stay out of transition. We want to provide the high level of emergency vehicle response times and to encourage that ridership through the schedule adherence of the transit. But we are going to try to adjust the splits and the offsets and anything we can downstream of an emergency vehicle or of a transit or freight, any other applications to try and maintain both good, reasonable response time and keep our coordination. It serves up to 26 simultaneous requests. And like I said, it really tries to adjust without breaking coordination. It's an important factor. There's no additional infrastructure. We need our controller, we need comms, we need the ATMS software to apply the solution.
Question.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to your priority, is the priority solution part of the base bid and well, let's start with that first question. Is priority part of the base bid and is that an optional bid item?
I think you guys asked for it as an optional bid item.
Okay.
I believe that's what we priced it, yes.
Okay.
Now, the interoperability with AI, I want to be clear, is going to be, you got the controllers, that's why you need to provide that portion.
So second question to that, does your priority solution rely upon a predefined route?
No,
It's not.
our priority solution is a center to center.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to connect with the transit agency. In an emergency services case, we would connect with the AVL system. We would pick up the position of the vehicles and the route, heading and speed. And based upon that, we provide ourselves for that greater future state knowledge for those downstream intersections so that we can make fine-tune adjustments, maintain the integrity of coordination for as long as we can, and only preempt if we absolutely have to, because we've got to serve the business rules of the emergency vehicle that needs to get through the intersection. So it reduces the total number of preemptions, and it's been in Charlotte,
In 22
22 seconds off the average response time, which went from 330 something down to
312.
312.
It's
I think that's where we're second to live, so it was meaningful to them. So it was interesting. Much better result than I thought.
So here's a list. I just wanted to go over and take a look at some of these classes. We're not going to spend too much time here, but we do break these up into 10 different levels of classification. This really allows us to put our battalion truck ahead of our chief's truck, or perhaps our ladder truck goes first. And then way down towards the bottom, we have some room for those transit vehicles. You can see if you just take a quick glance through these, that those classes 1 through 2 can do just about anything they need to do to get vehicle where it needs to go. They can do a hard preemption, they can do a bunch of changes, omit, skip phases, all within, of course, the operational rules. And then you get down to class 7 through 10, where it's not going to be able to do a whole lot. Maybe we don't need a high level priority here. If we can make it work, we want it to go through. Otherwise, we don't want to put this in. So it really allows you to be
Wait,
customized.
so that's it. I'm sorry, just
Nope.
a little far off. So that said, for 1 to 2, you can truncate the walk time,
Yeah.
like rail preemption. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, you can, up to you. I mean, it's.
No, I just want to make sure I was trying to see.
Yeah. We actually, when we first deployed this in the city of Charlotte, we had an opportunity we had 13 intersections on the 5 corridor. And we got the priority call. This is great. Now we can actually watch what happens. We had video as well, but we had 3 emergency vehicles, all with competing demand at the same intersection, all being served in the same cycle.
I think we just got lucky, to be honest with you, but it was actually pretty cool the way it worked out.
So just a couple highlights regarding priority, no new infrastructure. We've been bringing traffic departments and fire and transit together for years with this solution. We really incorporate all the needs of the stakeholders and encourage both sides to get on board. And we provide the entire sense of the route with a nice map overlay, indicators to where our buses and our emergency vehicles may be headed or are currently.
Would say that entire sense of the routes, sometimes we run into problems. We do have to do that integration with the downstream CAD provider, right? And if that CAD provider is not cooperative, for whatever reason, for transit, we can interface with GPFS with the routing. So that's good. For emergency services, if we know where the incident's at and we're looking at some machine learning technology to see if we can't derive that information, and we know where the vehicles are at, we'll fly a route, even if we're not getting a route. That allows us to identify those downstream intersections to provide ourselves for future state knowledge. Perhaps not as accurate as inheriting the route from the CAD system, but it's viable.
Just a quick description here, a visual of what a transit case and EV case might look like. I know we're getting close on time, so I want to be mindful of that. If a bus is coming up towards a light with the priority solution, it looks ahead and says, will I get the green light? Yes. Nothing happens. Priority doesn't get enacted. Everything continues on like it is. If the answer is no, we look back to the business rules applied. Is the vehicle more than 2 minutes behind schedule? Is it within the window where we want to apply priority? If that is the case, we're going to execute whatever level of priority we've dedicated to that individual vehicle. In an emergency services case, it's a very similar process. Again, we do nothing if it's yes. If it needs a green light for the EV, we look to priority to give it the green light. If yes, great, do it. If no, be more assertive. Truncate those phases, omit those phases, put in a preemption.
And just real quick, and maybe you'll get into this in the demonstration. What's the reporting looking like on these preemptions? Is it just yes, no? Because we've had a lot of concerns with our transit, with them understanding that they got denied, but it was denied because it was already green. And they take that as they only get 40% of their priority. And I'm like, well, no, because 90% of the time you're arriving on green during that 60, so what does the reporting look like? Because that's really hard to explain to non-traffic engineers that no, you didn't get denied 60% of the time. You arrived on green, so you didn't need it.
Brian Griggs, who's on the line, has built a dashboard for us to elevate that information so that you can present that back to your constituents or your customers.
Okay.
We're at the portion now where we're going to jump from the software central system into EOS and controllers, our operating software and our ATC. So I want to take a moment. I know we just had a couple questions and we're working on a short time frame here. Are there any others we want to get in right now before we jump into hardware? Okay. Great.
Sharon, I don't think we have to end right at 9:30 if we're asking.
No, I thought you guys ended about 9:40 and there's been some question and answer time.
Perfect.
So,
It's like a soccer.
by 10:05, we kind of got to wrap up the final question. Getting
Time, yeah. It's like soccer.
Gotcha. You got the time.
So again, bringing up question one again here, we've been talking about a lot of different aspects to answer question one, but I wanted to highlight this again as we go into our controllers. It is that we are the largest manufacturer of traffic controllers in North America. A third of the signalized intersections run Econolite controllers. We have a long history of innovation, stewardship, and technical support and advancements. And we have that the industry leading customer support. We really do pave the way, it seems, and at least in my career, I've noticed that Econolite tends to stay on the forefront of the controller technology. Some of the notable features, it conforms to the latest ATC standards. We do have shelf mount and rack mount versions available. That 7-inch high brightness color display is going to be a world of difference from the current provider you're using. We don't see these go out. We don't have the random characters that come up into the screens. We don't have a contrast. Usually these things are awesome in the heat and the sun with condensation. They just work really well. We do have an intuitive graphical interface if you'd like that. We can absolutely make that modification for you. It makes it more like an iPad or a touchscreen.
So that the color interface, is that standard or is that an option?
It's an option. For the graphical, I'm going to make
Yeah.
sure the graphical interface.
Yes.
It's an option. Some people don't like it. As a technician, I'm more comfortable with moving through the 1, 2, 3 buttons at the main menu.
Yeah.
So I find that a lot of people, they like the touchscreen aspect and they see the value in it, but when they're going to make those fast changes, they're going back to classic mode because it's just, it operates very well. So it's an option if you want it. EOS, the ATC controller software, it's agile. We've drastically reduced the coding size. We have big automated tests that are associated with this. It is very power efficient. It's secure with encrypted tunnel and service management. And a lot of our functionality comes off of, based off of user experience. Being in the industry for this long and having this much contact with the customers who really understand what they're looking for.
I think that's really a key point as well. The automated testing that we do both on the software and the hardware side of our business, firmware side of our business, eliminates, when we're talking about safety and efficiency of the motor and public, the ability to automatically test tens of thousands of configuration changes that are occurring out there in the field at the time is a huge advantage.
Yeah, it just so happens to be, we're right here on the side, perfect timing, John, per the usual. On the scheduled release of EOS firmware iteration, we have 82,000 augmented tests on average to go into it, over 35K configurations. We encourage every customer to send us your standard and your basic and your complex DB, so we can put this in the regression testing library to ensure that further firmware updates won't impede something that you might have individual to you that we're not looking for necessarily. We are able to simulate and run virtual controllers to do a lot of this work as well. There's an average of 15.4 million hours that go into each release, according to Dustin DeVoe. That's where I got that information. So if it's wrong, I'll blame it on him. But yeah, I was shocked by that number. That automated regression testing library is key. It allows us to really run those different scripts against and really test hard against the current firmware version we're putting out on the market. We do have cabinets and a lab environment as well where we test in a real world situation.
Question on the test.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like you're sending varied random workloads, but all expected inputs to do fuzz testing.
We have a completely random input generation. We throw in preamps, we throw in all kinds of, it's a simulated version. It's a simulated, how do I word this? It's a simulated environment. So it's constantly throwing complete random.
But still valid inputs. So fuzz testing is we put invalid inputs to see if it handles them.
You know, that's a really good question. I'm going to bounce that over to Brian Griggs. I think I don't know the answer unless you know off the top of your head. I'm not sure about that.
That is a great question.
That's a long way to actually basically maliciously attack some kind of equipment is with fuzz testing.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I bet that we should be able to address that here in a moment.
We did do a project for the Transportation Research Center in the Columbus area. And they wanted to test connected vehicle inputs and SPAT messages that may be consistent or in error. So we actually called them the pinball machine, but both the pinball machine, where you could have a green light, but the signal was actually pumping out a red message. And then we try to get the cars out there to see if they can hit each other. So that's their job. Cool environment.
Now, along with these scheduled firmware updates, I know that this can be a scary proposition for technicians, especially for the traffic operations shop. I'm here to ensure you that remote update is available. We've come up with a scenario where we can actually update the software when it goes to all red. Never goes into flash, don't need a technician in the field. It just takes it and goes right away. The fast computing power of our EOS and our ATC allow us this measure. And there's really, I want to touch on this, even though we pulled up the next screen. Each firmware iteration that comes out is going to encompass enhancements, either based on customer feedback or something we notice, and it's going to have any bug fixes. Along with it is going to be an extensive notation to let you know if this is something you need, or maybe you just stick with the current version you have. Just because we release a new version doesn't mean you have to run out and update everything right away. That might work fine for your application, but maybe your next version after that has something that you need, a parameter that you want. Now you skip over to that one. So we're very fluid as far as which EOS versions you're able to run with. Oops. Okay, so addressing question 4 now. This is the connected vehicle portion. How will we be able to support the county's goal of improving the safety and mobility using connected vehicle. Our Cobalt controller is already ready for it. We've had several applications that have been added to Centrax Mobility. And we're able to integrate with the J2735 COM standard with the SPAT, SRM, SSM. We actively participate in CV research, and we are developing some really cutting edge technology with Mound Road with applications to road weather.
The Mountain Road application is a operational data exchange environments. We've developed the code and we've given it back to Federal Highways as open source. It is published, I think, in the GitHub. And it gives us an opportunity to bring in connected vehicle data and utilize that information to develop connected vehicle applications. Those connected vehicle applications look like wrong way driving. We mentioned the weather applications. I think there's an eco driving application, some others as well. So it's a unique environment, very similar in some ways to the massive work that FDOT is doing with SWARI in the state of Florida, which is really cool. But for purposes of Hillsborough County, we believe this ODE environment that we've developed in Mound Road of Michigan is applicable here as an integrated element within Centrax, which will help allow you to contribute towards that large opportunity.
And not that this is necessarily pertaining to this project, particularly, but the weather data, are you getting from like Arwis, or are you using, just curiosity?
I think there's some, Brian, you might want to answer that if you want to pipe in. And
was that a question on the environmental sensor data?
yes,
Yeah, so we are connecting to different sensors. In this project, it was a Luft environmental sensor, pulling back the data sets that are available from that device, which is fairly typical sets of, temperature, humidity, precipitation, things like that.
you also looked at the NOAA data too, didn't you? Was that successful? Or?
Yes, we do have integration with NOAA data feeds, and the environmental data does get fused based on what is available and how it's what our confidence level in it is in each, and that data does get used across the system. For example, in a weather responsive type application, it gets binded over into our adaptive system and provides weather augmentation for the system.
Okay, just curious, because one, everybody drives different in the weather, and then for crash analysis, safety analysis, we look at, was it raining, foggy, or so, just curious where you got that.
Yes, and that would get logged as well.
Thanks, Brian.
On CV data, so I'd somewhere that the mobility works like a USDOT hub. Is that something that is included? Like, is it capable to receive messages, CV2S messages, and then forward them if we need to?
Or the operation data exchange would facilitate that, not Centrax Mobility.
Okay.
But it is on the roadmap to integrate the operation data exchange as a module or element of Centrax Mobility. So that's
something in development.
It's in development. The operation data exchange is developed, Centrax Mobility is in development and continuing to mature. Bring it over is what's in development. Yes.
Okay, so jumping ahead over here to review some EOS advanced functions. We're getting to the end of my section of the slides here, and we'll be moving into the demo. So the advanced functionality that I wanted to highlight today is this powerful responsive coordinator. You can see our coordination dial down there. It really does a good job of having that instantaneous response to the changes in cycles, offsets, and splits, especially good at handling oversized PEDs and that real-time transition status. Another couple of portions of the EOS that I really like is the availability to program hawk signals very easily. Any phase can be a hawk, and they're very easily configured in the operating software, and then the advanced flasher warning as well. Again, very easy to get to and program and check. The security features that are listed here on the screen, all important, but really editable and user ID passcodes. We have up to that 10-digit passcode now, as part of the requirements for you to be able to put on there and secure your devices. And then if you're not able to log in, you will have limited access to this status screens, and the web UI will be disabled. Now, one tool that we pair along with the EOS is going to be the ECU. Some of you may have used this in the room. The ECU is going to be the controller utility. It's a digital version of our interface that allows us to import databases, to manipulate them, to test them, to speed them up, to slow them down, to save them, to change their version, and really kind of do some testing outside of the controller environment to manipulate what you've got going on and recreate some field events. Looking ahead to some of the advanced features here, this is something that we're just getting into and is really exciting for us. There's an open source Python library where EOS is able to spawn up those virtual controllers and input specific inputs from modeling software. So we can replicate this and use this with universities. We collaborate with the USDOT, FHWA on this, and it is really going to push us into the next level as far as being able to simulate what's going to happen, test that automation. All right, just a couple braggadocious slides yet left, and then we'll be done with this portion. Proven success for us. We talked about this a couple times, but I love this map. 17,000 EOS deployments across the states. A couple success stories here. Alabama DOT, 2,100 controllers, around 80% deployed. They loved the remote front panel, the web interface, and the intuitive features. You can see some of the customer highlights there. So they are integrated with Centrax Mobility as well. We talked about Charlotte earlier, 900 plus intersections. The biggest, one of the biggest things here was really that emergency vehicle and transit system. They saw some really good improvements from it. And to be quite frank, their Centrax system looks really pretty with all the buses running and the halos and different stuff. It's, for a traffic nerd like me, it's pretty awesome to see. That remote update was important for them. They have 900 signals. They can't be going out with the USB and putting things in the flash for 10 minutes to update. We can't be doing that anymore. We're past that as an industry. So having that remote update is a really good function. And right next door here, new traffic signal system, 600 intersections. With the hot backup located at the EOC there. They have Centrax performance measures, which we're going to be going over, the signal performance measures, and MMS, our maintenance management system. What's that?
Joking around last night that the red lights, that's a competitive system, but we're going to transition here into some green lights.
Those animations were there, yeah. Okay, so this is what, if you go with anybody else, it's going to look like that.
Then yellow, then green.
And then yellow, and then this would obviously be ours here. So you get pretty lights with the Econolite, pretty colored lights. Any questions? I'm pretty much at the end of this portion of the presentation. I think we'll transition.
The transition kind of a wrap up, and then I think your questions.
Question about the web interface. So when we're on the client server, which is where I think we're going to start off, probably we can secure that internally through tunnels and whatnot. But when we're on the web interface, we're talking cloud access and an app on the phone, right? Is that app on the phone secured behind multi-factor authentication or just a PIN code that?
I'm sure we're securing it behind MFA.
Could we get that as a definitive answer?
Brian? Multi-factor
yes,
authentication on mobile.
Yes, and it's a responsive web application, so it's gonna piggyback on the same authentication source.
I heard you say 10-digit PIN, and I was like, that can be cracked in like minutes.
Yeah, that was just part of the, and Brian, maybe you can speak to this. I know that there's a 10-digit login that's recently been updated with some of the new EOS versions, and that was a requirement that you guys are meeting, correct?
On EOS, yeah, so remote front panel access will require the PIN. The rest of the application does additionally require authentication with 12 character passwords plus MFA.
Okay, the MFA is good. Is there a way to set a password policy that people have to rotate or change their codes on a regular basis?
Did you hear that question, Brian?
Yeah, I did. Yes, and as well as complexity requirements. And we're shortly have additional capabilities with direct integration with Azure Active Directory or SAML-based authentication sources as well.
Any other questions about anything we've seen so far? Anyone?
Yeah, this was a little bit further back. You think you're using TomTom for your data? Where do they use your data? Where does TomTom get their, you were saying for, was it this ATSPMs?
Right, so the incident management and the
It's
travel
okay.
time, yep, they're just, it's just pulling the freight and TomTom data from the users,
Okay.
much like Apple Maps would or Google Maps.
You'll see that demonstration.
One last question, kind of an offshoot. Does Centrax 2.0 or Centrax Mobility, is that supported on devices outside of a workstation? So tablets, mobile phones, can I access my ATMS central software from, multiple different devices?
I know you can, tablet and obviously your desktop, laptop. But Brian, what kind of, what have you done with the mobile application? Is it viable
Yeah,
on a
so-
mobile app?
Yeah. So the different form factors and the UI will, it's a responsive UI, so it'll adjust based on the available screen real estate, as well. So yeah, phone, tablet, desktop,
So the question
Centrax.
is for both the client server version and the cloud. So I understand the cloud can be made responsive, but what about the client server version?
The Centrax client does require a Windows tablet, so a Surface, Windows Surface tablet, for example, would work. But
Just to expound on that, is that support touchscreen?
it does, and there's a button in the application too that'll enable the touch mode within Centrax,
Okay.
which I think we can show later.
Thank you.
And that's part of our effort, William, to move some of those ATMS functions over to the cloud at an integrated kind of a level and incorporating that to a roadmap, because we recognize the functionality of you being able to go into the database editor when you're out there or log into the remote front panel just from hitting that browser window, as opposed to having to RDP or remote into a desktop system.
Well, and having to have a laptop in a cabinet with that tiny shelf is not the easiest thing in the world to try and deal with. So,
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, the smaller the device that I can put on a shelf and change everything, the better.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming that there's some kind of a database integration between the Centrax and the mobility where they share databases get synchronized or
There's a
something.
quick button, go right back and forth between the two. If I modify a database and mobility, I can share it in Centrax.
Okay.
There's we talked about PTV group a little bit earlier, and one of the reasons I'm really excited and back at Econolite is the opportunity to integrate between the planning software that the PTV are very good at developing and propagating across the world, and the operational environment in the world that we live in. And that is, if you can imagine, if I could take an EOS controller and I could embed that EOS controller in PTV software, I can start running all sorts of scenarios. I can do it for event planning, I can do it for hurricane evacuation, I can do it for road closures, for maintenance operations that might be out there. And with those what if scenarios, I can forecast and start gaming how the system might need to perform, even if it never actually has to perform those banners. So I'm really excited about that, the integration of actually putting the EOS controller into the system software and then integrating back and forth between the systems so you can get that data up to date. I think that's really particularly cool. When we start looking at things like hurricane evacuations, which are obviously important here, the opportunity to start picking up where do my assets reside, where I can actually use those assets for evacuation purposes. Government can't just say, hey, everybody evacuate, you guys know, don't plug up the freeways and don't go anywhere. But areas of population need to evacuate at certain times, and understanding where the transit vehicles are at, understanding where the school buses are at in order to get people out of the area. It makes a big difference. And pulling that into your planning software and running those what if scenarios to most efficiently evacuate and allowing the control mechanisms to say, do it here, then do it here, do it here, is pretty interesting and compelling. So one of the reasons I'm back at the Econolite. And the other reason, and I'll just mention this, is, you know, the industry is really at this inflection points. And you can imagine there's 1.2 trillion new dollars for infrastructure development in the United States and the Infrastructure Jobs Act. It's an incredible amount of money. It's more money by far than we spent building 46,000 miles of roadway from the interstate highway system. So there's an opportunity, there's money that's out there. There's not only a lot of public money, but there's a lot of private money looking for a hedge against inflation, where they can invest in infrastructure. Bringing in public-private partnerships, doing things a lot differently. And if you shift your focus from the interstate highway system world into that future world, gives us an opportunity as an industry to really imagine where transportation needs to be, not next year, not just through this procurement, but where we need to be 50 years from now, and start planning around that with the tools and resources that we need today. Then, you know, the last thing I would mention that if you look at the technological revolutions that are occurring simultaneously today, there's 5 of them, which never happened before. The first is genomic research. I can't tie that to transportation. But they do say that the person who will live forever has already been born. So that's kind of cool. It's not me, but that's good. But blockchain, and how we can do smart contracts on blockchain, how that might impact transportation. There's an applicability there someplace. And I want to explore that. Energy storage obviously has a huge impact on transportation, electrification of our infrastructure. Artificial intelligence and how Elon Musk is going to drive a vehicle from one coast to the other coast using artificial intelligence, and that's the robotics. All these technological revolutions are occurring at the same time, and I believe 4 of them have direct impact on how we deliver transportation services over the next 50 years. Not tomorrow, but over that period of time. And I'm excited to be back to Econolite because we're thinking about those types of things.
Question until about 10, so.
I think we did a good job of asking questions during the oral presentation. I myself at this point don't have any additional questions, but I open it up to the rest of the committee. Is there any other questions that you guys want to ask? We got about 10 to 12 minutes here, so we have time.
I'm good.
I think based on the current discussion.
Guys, good.
And okay.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Take our 15-minute break early. Come back and start the next section a little bit earlier.
Sure.
For the demonstration, I want to eliminate this lag problem and make sure that we go through that integration effort.
You'll say disconnected, sorry.
Can they just connect with their laptop right up to this bigger screen? That'd be better.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Now the
We got
technology
to-
for presentation, but we don't want that delay to the demo.
What do we have, about 15 minutes or so?
I mean, we could.
They were ahead of schedule, so if it's
time, yeah. So
technical, difficulties, we can.
It's up to you when you guys want to get back, but if we have a minimum of 15 minutes, we'll explore it here and test it. If it works here, great. We don't have to move down to that end of the table. If it doesn't, then.
I mean,
I think we may have to shift some bodies as well, because we're gonna be demoing, the system, so we kind of maybe need to we'll post it together.
And ideally, that's going to be set up right here. I've got power established.
Okay.
I've got all these hooked up to a network switch and run into an instance for you guys for Hillsborough for Centrac. So touch and feel will be right up here. All right.
At this point, with being a little ahead of schedule, if you
I've seen.
Because we can.
So I,
So the questions are not necessarily particular for.
So you can go ahead and take it from here.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Up here on the screen, you can see we have an iteration of Syntrax 2.0. This is our on-premise solution. We've customized this for a map to include Hillsborough County. I selected 4 intersections on MLK to display here. We've got a couple coordinated sections. We've got a hawk signal configuration, and then we've got a free all the way out about Rico out there on the east. So first things first, scroll in a little bit here so we can see one of these intersections. One of the nice things about Syntrax is it's completely customizable. We do have different containers, and our view really allows us to customize our look and then save our preferences if we would like to keep it that way. So I'm going to put up my alert list. I'm going to drop it into the bottom corner here, just to kind of show you the customization that is available. Looking at the entity tree out here on the left, we right click. We've got a bunch of different commands we can jump right to, zoom to it, launch a signal editor, front panel, do a bunch of the operations right from that entity tree. And you can break this up into different flex groups, corridors, different groups of signals with different parameters that you'd like to organize. You can see the color indications out to the right there, green being coordinated, we have the white being free, and then all of the different colors on the top there with the map viewing. Double clicking on an intersection or just hovering over it, we get some basic information here. And double clicking on it, we get a nice screen that gives us an overlay, phase indications, headwalks, what's going on in the field, where the calls are, what the time is, where the countdown, any alarms will be stored here and show up as well. This gives us some more access to some more features. Now, for anybody that's looking in the room, can anybody tell me what's wrong with this intersection? I put something in here that is incorrect. The little flashing yellow arrow is correct. I just wanted to demonstrate that we have the capability to go and do whatever we need to do. Obviously, this would not be the setup that you would want. Up at the top there, we have a coordination time. And we're going to enact some preempt here so you can see what that looks like. Say right where you're at. So I've got preempt 3. And we can see we've got our flashy fire truck there. We're going to yellow or red. And there we go. Fire truck's good headed that way. We've got the flashing yellow arrow up. This will last for another 12 seconds or so, and you'll watch it terminate.
I'm assuming you can omit that FYA programming, start preemption. So
It's just made, yes, ma'am, right, completely customized into whatever standard you want it. I want you to pay attention, so I'm stuff up there.
Hey, Texas and in Michigan, they do the little flashing yellow arrow. We don't do it in Florida.
Somebody showed me some videos, Alan Baker showed me a video yesterday of him rolling through an intersection with doing, I didn't believe it. I had to see a video myself. I couldn't believe it. They were
You should
actually
do
doing
it for the MTCD.
We just don't want to hear it. All right, so I went ahead and indicated the cabinet door open feature. I like this little yellow triangle down here at the bottom. If we've got an alarm, we've got a cabinet door open, we've got a good visualization to see. In addition to that, it's going to take care of our alarms. For all of our kind of advisory information alert list, you can see up there at the corner, we have informational all the way to critical with the green, yellow, red there. So just an indication here that the door has been opened and closed several times. Obviously, we've been testing this a little bit. You can select, acknowledge, clear, close, do all kinds of stuff with just this screen.
And is there a way to set, like text messages for alarms or emails for alarms that, like if I wanted, the on-call text or whoever to know something, is there a way that Syntrax can just send an alert, hey, this signal's been flashed before somebody calls HDSO, they just get an alert on their phone and they can look into it?
Sure, you can establish an alert list with recipients for text message, for emails, all those communications. In addition to that, there's escalations and alerts, so that it's not responded to or not addressed, they'll go to the next person online after a certain time. So I got to take a set person.
So just to clarify, you are able to send text messages and not just emails.
Correct. double check and confirm that. Yep, John showed it.
It's absolutely correct. Yeah,
Exactly what we do.
absolutely. And you can actually respond back from your text to acknowledge an incident, and that gets fed back into the system.
And with an OSS application, you can put inventory and acknowledge all kinds of work orders and tasks right from that map as well. So it takes it another step further.
Yes, as far as my side's concerned, my on-call guys are not checking their email every 5-10, they're not at all.
No, but I bet they're looking at their phone and vibrates it, because I know that's how.
So are we also gonna see the presentation with, the mobility side?
Yes.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And so the same question, so can we also set up the same type of alarms for, let's say, some performance falls within a range, I wanna be alarmed of that?
Yeah, we call it system hotspots. We have a couple of different areas that will accomplish that goal. As far as the alerts and escalations and triggers, they are very similar in mobility as they are to same mobility or the same features there to go to screen phones, email, different SMS applications. So from the same status screen here, we've got this little tool out here on the side. If we hover over it, we launch a couple windows. There are a few out here that get used regularly. One of them being the launch of the front panel, and do that now. For those of you on the call may not be able to see me, but I'm going to go ahead and make some modifications here on the screen. So as you can see, I'm pressing the screen, I'm making movements through, and everything is being kept up with on the remote front panel. So it's really instantaneous access to what's going on here.
What does he use, what kind of technology does he use to, display the front panel? Is it using something like a secure shell, or how did you get the front panel display on the application backward wise, you know?
Then how's it mirrored?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Brian.
Yeah, that might be a good question. Brian, did you hear that question?
Yeah, I
The
think
reason
so.
I'm asking is we have a certain standards where we actually prohibit certain ports to be used on a network, for example, telnet. So I just wanted to make sure that you're not using telnet to display the remote panel.
Yeah, it's not using telnet. It's actually on the same port as the other device communication. So if this is port 501 as configured,
Okay.
it's using the SNMP based protocol.
Also, so it's going to be SNMP, and it's going to be a different port for a controller, or one port for all the controllers, I guess.
It's configurable. Usually, we see agencies just keep the same port number since it's a unique IP, but you can set the port to anything you'd like.
Thank you.
Any other questions there on that? Okay, so under this tool, the hovering tool, again, we have the launch signal editor. A lot of times, operators are spending a lot of their time in the signal editor portion. We're going to go ahead and blow that up now. This does have a nice compare and a compare tool, so we can pull databases from the field, compare them to the databases that are existing in Centrax. It will highlight any of the differences that it sees. We can store, we can cancel it, we can put something new in, all from this one screen. Up here at the top, you can see a bunch of different icons that allow you to compare, download, upload, copy, print, and easy access to all of the controller components here. The next thing I wanted to highlight for Centrax 2.0 is the alarms and events that we're able to get in reports. So I know that Hillsborough County runs a lot of different reports through the current ATMS system for daily functions, detector failures, compare reports. And those are all available here as well in Centrax. So you can see a list out of them on the side here. We don't have a bunch of detector data going into these, so there's not a lot of values for these actual reports on this demonstration setup, but they're all there for you, and anything that you can think of that you might like is there.
I got a quick question. It might be a little out there, but is there a way to ignore intersections on a report without having to select every intersection? Basically, if you're testing an intersection in a cabinet, it's going to go into flash 20 times a day.
Mhm.
Is there a way to tell the system quickly and easily rather than having to select every intersection and then delete that test intersection from the reporting? Is there an easy way to have the system ignore that?
It's an interesting question. I haven't considered that before. Brian, I'll throw that one to you if you have anything on it. As far as ignoring the intersection.
Always I've seen people ignore the little alerts.
Yeah.
If they get so used to seeing them from test cabinets, they just stop paying attention to it, so there's no point in me having that little notification if they just ignore it.
Like put in something on their maintenance, so I'll say, we're doing maintenance on this one, so let's ignore it for.
Like, could you put it in a
That's fine.
group? Yeah, you put it in a special group that says ignore this group, and then you're not constantly worrying about people ignoring that or getting a text message and having to acknowledge that because it's not actually a real intersection per se.
Besides removing
Yeah.
the notification for the, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, for sure. For on the alerts, you can do that. You can set up the triggers and have filtering on which and you can do it by groups too. If you wanted to have a group like you're saying that's a exception group, you can certainly do that. Put the devices in there that you don't want to alert on. It would be under the triggers column. But yes, that's certainly possible. Yeah, it was on that last page, Kyle, with the triggers tab.
Take the step to kind of try to address some of the demonstration questions along the way.
Yes, sir.
And one in particular goes back to the database editor that you just showed. So you demonstrated the controller interface for database editing. Does Centrax have the ability to edit multiple databases at one time?
I don't know. Brian?
I know we obviously will create a template that you can apply to each one to minimize your programming needs from right off the jump. 80% of it there. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah. So Kyle, if you wanted to, you could have this database header open and then open another signal alongside it.
You're asking more for like a mass edit, right?
Like change all your clearance intervals,
Yeah, something
change all
like
your
that,
min
yeah.
greens.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe cycle links, particular patterns, stuff like that. Could I do multiple database edits at one time? Or is it a singular, you have to edit every single database individually?
Like if you wanted to do all these intersections and change the cycle length to 120 in pattern 1, could you do it in one?
We responded to an event and we know that we use the number pattern 28, for example, and then we want to apply that to this group.
Brian,
I'll throw that back to Brian.
I don't know that there's a dialogue to completely meet that, and that it would be something along the lines of globally, I want to change all my, make it up, min greens from 7 to 8 seconds.
Yeah, there's not a mass edit, but you are able to open multiple controllers at the same time and apply changes concurrently. Like Kyle has up here, so you could change, the cycle length or something and update without having to close out of it.
So if you like, Kyle, you can just kind of step through while you're demonstrating some of the questions that we had available. One in particular, you actually answered during the oral presentation, so I want to leave that out of our questioning. But the first question that we wanted to ask is to see if you could demonstrate how or the best way to make rapid signal timing changes at multiple intersections. So we know it can be done at one intersection, but can I take a group of intersections and say, I want these intersections to run, a 250 cycle? Is there a feature to kind of automatically distribute splits, things of that nature? You know, does it integrate with the ATSPM platform, things of that nature. So basically what we're looking for is, you know, without a predetermined user group or entity tree for a corridor, you know, if I took Centrax out of the box and I identify an incident and I want to take 3 intersections and edit the cycle offset split, what is the easiest way to do that?
If it's just 3 intersections, the easiest way to do it would be.
Well, I mean, it could be 3, it could be 6, it could be, yeah.
30 intersections, okay. So I think it goes back to, again, we're kind of on the same sort of thing. Can we select multiple and apply that cycle offset split? And I think we're still at the point where that's not a feature that we support at this point. And that's.
And you want to do that independent of setting up a group of intersections, correct?
Yeah,
Or a predetermined pattern. I'm not asking you to put in pattern 28 in a group. We can do that. Is there a way, and it does kind of come back to the mass editing, is there a way to say, all right, these 30 intersections, I want to go free. Or, you know, or I want, or, you know what, these 30 intersections, I want your adaptive or something to take over for now, or, you know, something like that. It's not.
You can absolutely push down a manual command, reset pattern, perhaps, if you want to put it in free flash, you know, select, you know, we can do that very quickly, where you go there and push down those manual commands. As far as being able to select 10 from the institution tree and selected that I would like them all to go to the 160-second cycle length with an offset of 3 at the same time. At least as far as I'm understanding the button, that's not a capability that we currently have.
I don't think we'd want to do that, but I'm curious to kind of dive deeper a little bit.
The offset would be a problem right now.
Yeah.
But would there be a way to say, in this instance, I want these signals to be taken over by
I think
adaptive ATSPM portion, or however you want to phrase that? Would that be a possibility?
I'm trying to be considerate of the comment that I don't want to set up a group. But it's very easy to set up a group as well. So pick these intersections, a group, and do global commands to that group of intersections. That is fairly simple to do, but it is in the context of defining a group. But
There's also the ability, you can dynamically select on the map, so you can control click those intersections, or we have a rubber band feature where you can shift drag an area and select all the intersections and change them there.
Yeah, if you scroll out a little bit and you can show that you can actually select multiple intersections at the same time and assign those to a group. You've only got 2
Or just
intersections.
right click, send a command, name a command.
Okay, so you can't send a command to multiple.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's in the manual command. So if you have a set pattern, if that's what parameters that you like, you can obviously push down that pattern.
I think let's come up with a random number that's not pre-established, 162-second cycle. No, I think we want you to go through the effort of setting that up properly.
And you know what might be beneficial on this with the manual command that I really like is the scheduling availability. You tell it you want it to do it in 30 minutes from now, and you want it to do it now, or tomorrow, or a week from now, or a month. And then you automatically do it for you.
and I can do that in multiple intersections.
Yes, sir. We
Yes, no, you go in a particular pattern.
Yes, sir. We just selected both the hawk and the like, let's say.
Is that right?
Brian, you want to loop to the run conditionally function here? Hover over.
That like run this pattern unless you get a preemption call, or run this unless?
I think run continually is probably referencing the fact that it wouldn't change at the next pattern signal time. And so if it was in between pattern 2 and 3, you have in pattern 4, and then pattern 2, when it gets to pattern 3 at 3 o'clock, it's not going to change it to pattern 3. It's going to continue on pattern 4 until it either recognizes that it's supposed to stop at a certain time of day, or you kill it yourself.
It'll also kick back. So you can mass select number of signals. That's not guaranteed that they'll all have the same pattern numbers defined. And if they're different, the run conditionally will come back with a message warning you that there's discrepancies amongst the selected signals that you may have included in the list. If not selected, it'll send out that command to the applicable signals. So if you had, like, say, pattern 95 or something that you told it to run, and that signal number 4 did not have pattern 95, it would bring back a warning for you.
It would alert you rather than putting it to free, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have like effect your local function. Currently.
They're local. Not sure what that feature is.
Yeah, so it'll actively send a command out to the controller, clear, so you can have different operations coming from the system, like you could set up a schedule or something to set a pattern, and that would clear out that command forcefully and just send it back to local control, TOD or whatever it's doing.
Mm,
Okay.
When was some of this, well, you guys, when would we want to use some of this stuff? Like with the temporary traffic control events or
certainly, any professional events, hurricanes, incidents, diversion routes.
Good.
It's really, the good thing about the stop in X number of minutes is that you don't have to sit there, like if we predict the event's gonna be till 11 PM, I'm not having to sit at my computer, come back at 11 PM and turn off the pattern, I can just set it to,
So you can start off with.
right, I can say, stop this, you know.
Specifically for diversion routes, I mean, being able to just your ground pattern, 27, 28, 29, throw them down wherever you want to, depending on the direction. We already have those established here, so in part, to utilize those through this manual command would be very good. And then you can select multiple at a time, obviously. Any other questions from this portion?
No, not from that debate.
Okay, so, pretty much touched on a lot of the basic kind of functionality from this and tracks. Is there anything specific that you guys use ATMS for right now, ATMS.now for right now that you haven't seen touch on in this, on-prem version that you might like to see? I will be touching on some of the topics in the mobility portion as well, and that's where I really want to focus a lot of our attention.
Where was the reporting that you mentioned? He was asking about Delta, the change, and trying to actually see the change of it's 7 minutes quicker rather than 21 and 14, you know, I don't know if that's this portion or.
Well, I think they said they didn't have that.
Right.
They gave you the data, so you had to come up with that comparison on your own.
Right, they said they chose what it looks like, so I just want to see what that report would look like.
But definitely take a look at the compare tool on the mobility portion.
So it's the mobile, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and that compare tool does a lot of all data comparison. It may be what you're talking about, but we'll get a visual on it and make sure that will be. Anything else from the Syntrax portion here? I don't want to leave any stone unturned here, but I also want to acknowledge that we're up against we've got a time constraint. I really want to be able to explore mobility with you guys.
And then really the TSP and stuff is a bit of the mobility portion as well.
Do you guys, as part of Syntrax, do you guys have a dashboard that displays different, data sets, preemption events, things like that? Any live interactive dashboard?
Similar to that one there,
Yeah.
because that's going to show you obviously doing the whole trinity with preamp and transition and all that stuff. But this would tell you, and this is customizable, anything along the top there we can add to this and take away from it.
Okay.
So if we don't like something we see here, we don't need it, we can kill it and shorten this list, or we just have it all out there.
Okay.
So this is going to be a constant kind of a quick reference visual. I got a bunch of stuff in transition. I need to go investigate. The points to make about Syntrax is really, this is your day-to-day tool to keep track of your system, to check and see how it's doing, to make database changes, to, look at alerts and events. Once you figure out what the problem is, we really encourage you to go to mobility to then try to look for the solutions with the SPM data, especially if it's in reference to a formation change or some kind of engineering framework.
Have you guys ever worked on an API to export this data into like a separate dashboard or anything like that? So is there a way to pull that data or, any kind of dashboard data? Is there a way to pull that out into another worksheet or system or?
There is an API in mobility. It's fully supported. Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously CSV, basic data reports to yourself for you to be able to take in and implement it into your optimization software or something. Sure.
So also allows third party developers to come in and utilize that and or they may use that.
Here, I'll just go ahead and do this now, Will. We can select and do select all we want here. And blow them out. So, I mean, obviously, this is a lot of mess going on right now, and we not have all these up for operational purposes, but I've seen clients use 5 of them, I've seen clients use 10 of them.
Right.
I've seen people use none of them sometimes. The nice thing about Centract is once you figure out where all the reference sets are, where the container windows were, where everything that you utilize on a daily basis, you can really put that in place and save your preferences. So every time you sit down at your computer, you've got the same graphics up, you have the same ability to see what's going on. Brian, you have a question?
Now, can you close out actually?
Okay, there, sure. Okay, so, we just expecting to do this one little line because we unplugged before. I don't know, that's.
We got me unplugged.
Oh, yeah, it's full.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you trying to sabotage me?
No.
That's your brother.
Yes, sir.
So
There's no one.
demonstrating up on the screen here.
That's a good question.
The visuals for the railway preemption, as it's in. It's gonna dwell for 8 or 6, 7 or 8 seconds and then roll back into.
We have this kind of view now, like with ATMS now. It's graphical view.
There's that.
Yeah, there's a view similar to this, yes.
So now we're back into operation. So transition. And you plug back in, and now I'm back up and running here with, both turns, so.
It's close to the office, I mean, to go there.
That's why I picked in, okay, I figured it's before we're to display some information for it. Anything else here from the peanut gallery in regards to?
Your CCTV integration, I know you've done some integration with, Pinellas County in particular. Is that done through the Centrax, application or through the Centrax mobility?
Yes. Centrax mobility is on the roadmap for this
Okay.
year, so CCTV is being integrated and pulled over from Centrax ATMS 2.0.
Okay,
So right now we use the advanced CCTV module that allows us to use Genetech licenses
Okay.
and a broad range of different.
so it does require that third party integration with just.
Yes and no. We've integrated natively, access cameras and of course the vision autoscope cameras. So you can pull those up and interface directly with those cameras
That was
from
my next
Centrax
question.
without Genetech.
What other cameras?
If we want to extend beyond that, we would want to do, we don't want to be in the camera driver business. There's thousands of cameras that are out there. But we have partnered with Genetech, and we bring them in as a module. You got to pay Genetech as well, so they got to get some money. But their list of devices they've interfaced with is 30 pages long, 9-point fonts. It's really a pretty robust video management
Is it
system.
doing 265, you know?
Pardon me?
It's
It's security centered.
It's a 265, you know, or 264.
6.4, I believe, last in H.264, yeah. Last time, is there H.265 now?
Oh, there has been for a long time.
No, I
Now there's V9. Interesting. It was the newest one.
And just to clarify, you can integrate the camera feed, but in order to have the advanced features, pan, tilt, zoom, things like that, that
We do pan,
requires.
tilt, and zoom with access cameras, of course, autoscopes don't pan, tilt, and zoom.
Okay,
But with access cameras, you can natively from Central.
okay.
So we don't need to buy like Genetech, is it included in the native application?
No, it is actually because they charge us.
We need to buy the Genetech license.
Yeah.
But that will be something that is done on Econolite skin, correct? You will acquire the Genetech license. Okay.
Was that one of your alternate price items?
It would be an alternate price item. It's Genetech can get pretty expensive. They do charge a license per camera.
Anything else for Centrax?
I guess just clarify that. So right now it's the camera integration is under Centrax 2.0. Correct. But you're working to have it also available under Centrax mobility.
That is correct. And because the web-based system, it's a little bit trickier in the mobility world, and keeping the transactional costs down for our customers is pretty important.
Started to integrate features from Centrax over into mobility beyond the SPN, beyond the device management, and those sort of things. ATMS is in there now, but we have to take this route of ensuring that we not only support and continue to advance 2.0, but we're porting those over in a way that's going to be user friendly. That's takes time, and some development efforts we have done. As a company, we recognize that that is the future. We need to have everything ported over to mobility so that we have the option for both. And that's what we're certainly, the majority of our work is pursuing that integration.
And I don't, you've not asked this question yet, but how far along are we towards porting the ATMS functionality of Centrax over to mobility? And based upon the work that Brian's done that I've seen recently, I'd gauge it around 70 or 80%, but there's still quite a bit of work to do, and that's on our roadmap for the next 2 years.
So currently you do not offer a full cloud supported environment,
Not for CC.
but it's on your roadmap. Okay.
Let's transition over into mobility. Unless there's any other questions on Centrax, we can always come back.
For sharing it, Brian, just real quick. Is it all right if online like there's ask clarifying questions, or are we limited to subject?
Yeah, for the most part, the preference is the evaluation committee board.
I was just
You need to bring up clarifying is. It asks on this evaluation committee members. And the evaluation committee is always able to ask you guys for additional support. So preference is the evaluation committee reach out to you guys.
Rules of engagement.
Well, we have a few other questions. Some of them are hardware. What would be better to ask them now or when they can finish?
Jump into it right now. That's fine. Let's break up the demo a little bit. That's fine. Ask your question. Sure.
So let's say we want to update the traffic controller firmware. Because we need something that is on the next firmware.
Sure.
What will be the process?
So we're going through the,
I think you guys somewhat answered this in the oral presentation, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you could just briefly lay out the steps involved.
so I'm going to make it brief and make it concise. I'm going to pitch it to Brian Griggs again, because he's going to have the best explanation on this. Or maybe perhaps John back there.
You can push those updates from Centrax to the controller, so you get a new firmware update. You can push it from Centrax down to the controllers over the air. The controllers will sit there until you're ready for it to implement, and I think it sits on an all red. And you pop into the new version of firmware. So it's pretty straightforward.
So it's pushed, then it's like all red,
Rest over the year,
and then
and no flash required.
Correct. No flash required.
So this, Will's, the city's doing this right now, as we speak. Jose's going in periodically, it's got to put the 600, right?
Yeah.
He's upgrading. Do the same type process.
I would like to further expand on that question. So we can do an OTA firmware update. Does the system notify us that there's a firmware update available, or is that going to be up to the engineer to go notice that there's a new update and go get that to push it over the air?
I don't, Brian, do you know if will the system Centrax notify us that there's a new version of BIOS to push?
Not within the application itself, but we do send out like marketing notifications, a new version availability.
So it would still be a manual person intervention for updating. And that's a big thing that the county is moving towards, is having all of these types of things become more automated, because things fall behind it and we end up being in security breaches.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, Patrick, but I don't think in this instance, we want to go to full automation.
No.
Being that there are some features of certain firmware updates that we may not necessarily want or need.
Well, that's just, I didn't even finish the question.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, yes.
So that's where like our automation usually is like N-2.
Right.
Where it automatically will update, but we're automatically updating to 2 versions behind the current.
Right.
So that way it's already been well vetted before we get there.
Uh-huh.
The other question was, what is the rollback capabilities? So if a firmware update push was to fail remotely, would it automatically go back to the previous firmware? Or if there was an instance that the new firmware was not functioning as we had intended, can it roll back quickly and easily?
I think Doug Tarek is on the line. You know, have you experienced that?
Oh, I have, let's let the experts handle it.
Doug, are you on the line? You push out a new version of firmware to the controller. For whatever reason, the controller doesn't like it or the customer doesn't like it and they want to revert back to what was there before.
The question is, what's the?
Hopefully he's still on the line. I can't see him.
I think he's saying something. We can't hear him. More of a situation, like something happens.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
There is.
Yes.
All
Go ahead,
right.
Doug.
So the question is, what's the process for reverting that update?
Yep.
Assuming
Um,
it encounters an issue, not just, I don't like 28, I want to go back to 27, but there's a hiccup in the field pushing 28 and the controller doesn't like it for some reason. Does it automatically revert back to the previous firmware version?
There's no automatic revert back. I'm not even sure what conditions that would be desirable, but certainly the user has the ability to roll back if that is what's desired.
I don't think we've seen a whole lot of instances where we have an issue. It happens so quickly and it happens during all red. I'm having a hard time. I'm sitting here trying to think of it too, of an instance that would cause it to not accept it, besides like a catastrophic hardware failure within the controller. And that
Yeah.
one, you're not reverting
I'm
anything.
thinking like network communication, stuff like that. Weird random thing.
Some chatter on the line for a data line or something.
Yeah, I mean, if it was going to fail due to a network issue, that would happen before it even got to the point of trying to deploy the update.
It's true.
And then it would just continue with the existing version.
Kind of sets it in there and it's waiting for it to get to the right.
Yeah, and it does like, does it do like a checksum to validate, take out validate, yeah.
Yes, it does. It certainly validates before it installs.
Okay, is there an easy button for the revert? I mean, and how easily are we able to do that?
If it's a manual revert, then it would just be, I mean, let's say you updated from version 27 to 28 and decided that you weren't happy with 28 for some reason, then it would just be the same process as the update you could use to downgrade. So the remote update process can be used for upgrade or downgrade.
So that's why it's with a different version.
It's a different version. You know,
But it would be really good if there was some way to have like a systematic log that says all of these devices are at this firmware version, this is the newest available. And not relying on like the newsletter or something, because that's an old school way of handling.
so some kind of alert that's not going to implement those new changes necessarily.
That's chosen.
In the firmware.
Ideally, you'd have that
So
option,
clicky button, yes or no?
or, an alert that you can acknowledge, but it's still a place, either a report or a dashboard where you can view what's available versus what's deployed. And that's important, especially for auditing.
So there is a report to list out all the firmware versions that are out there in the field. So if you get 27, 27, 27, 28, 27, 27, you'll see the 28.
But we need to know what the newest is. That's what compliance comes in.
Feature within Centrax that alerts to you, hey, there's a new firmware version. Number 29 came out yesterday.
Or that would be great, or at the very minimum, the existing report that shows our current versions. And then also there's some kind of query to get some kind of central database of information that says these are the newest versions. So you can put those together in one place.
I don't want to take up a lot of their time on rather questions and answers and have them yes or no and describe. I don't want to take up a lot of their demonstration time on how to improve process and stuff.
Any more questions there? What time do we have till for this? I just want to make sure I'm catering this correctly. I can either do a 5-minute, 10-minute overview, or I can spend 30 minutes or an hour on this. So I want to make sure I'm in the right time frame and meeting the expectations.
Which time do we have?
I had you for the demonstration right around like 11:25. We are taking questions and answers. at this point, so we can come
And
into
then
that.
how long do we have for question and answers for that?
We had it set it to an additional time, I think 30 minutes after the demonstration, so, you know, we're a little bit flexible, we're doing questions and answers at the same time.
It's kind of the same as the
Yeah.
presentations. We're asking questions along the way, so
Understood.
we may not need that much time on the back end.
Understood. Taken into consideration.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into mobility. What we're looking at up at here on the screen is an instance over on the East Coast, Port St. Lucie, Florida. They had originally just had this one corridor. They've since added, are slowly adding more corridors to their system. We've got a nice graphic user interface here on the front. All of the modules are out on the side. You can see. On this map overview page, we do have some of the metrics. This is all customizable. I can move these where I want them to. I can change them from what they are now to other things. System arrivals on green, PED delay, uptime, transition, and control delay. Now, looking at this, it does not mean that 91% of my system arrivals are on green. This is within the thresholds and the parameters that Port St. Lucie has set up to figure out where they are with this metric. And we're really looking at like the past 24 hours here for this metric. So the ATMS 2.0, the Citrix 2.0 is really for the right now, here and there. This is for, hey, let's look and see where we're at with our metrics, what's happening in the field of coordination, and see where we can solve this. This is really summarizing your 24 hours ahead of time or prior to this. What we're looking at.
And is that a rolling 24 or day to day?
So it's a day-to-day 24, isn't it? Yeah, it's day-to-day 24.
Okay.
System hotspots located down here at the bottom, again, movable and similar to the container portions of 2.0, you can move this around. This is just the typical setup. A system hotspot, these are going to be thresholds that have been predetermined by PSL, and they're going to go out and look for things that might be falling. If an arrival's on green, percentage is falling below or above the expected or the recommended threshold. This is going to give us a system hotspot to tell us, hey, we need to go look at something. I don't think it's liking the internet speed here too quick. It's generally populates very fast. I will say that there are some metrics that we're going to go into later where it has to parse through and pull a bunch of data. They take a little bit of time to spin. I think between share and so.
Still connected?
It looks like it. Oh, hang on. See, back to the issue here.
Not connected?
It's connected. It's just taking a minute. Here it goes. All right, back to this. Looking down here, again, the system hotspots, we'll try it one more time to see if it gives it there. Look at that, pulled up real quick here. PED delays, we've got a total over the 24 hours of that 30 minutes. We can run right to the data. And then get held up on this one as well. No, it worked quickly. There we go. That's how I expect it to work. So it's got that quick and easy button to go straight to the data. I see some problem. I'm gonna go check out the metric and see what. Sitting back over to the main screen here. I do want to highlight a few more the indicators here. Out to the left, we've got a bunch of different layers we can turn off and on at this intersection. If I wanted to change the MOE types, we've got different indicators that are giving us an issue down here at this furthest south intersection. There's an issue with the arrivals on green there. It doesn't like it. If I change it to vehicle delays, you'll see some different indicators going on. If I take these metrics away, what we're looking at here is just the operability of the system. So we have the current operation down here at the south is gonna be free. We have 2 signals in transition, the rest are currently ignored. So it's a nice visual to see.
We just transitioned from SPM data and indicators to ATMS indicators.
So hovering over these, you get again a few more indicators. If you turn the metrics back on, the 5 points that are below us here that we looked at just a second ago will populate as you scroll over, give you kind of a visual of what's happening. If we scroll all the way in, make sure that here, yep. We scroll all the way in, we do see an intersection layout similar to what we have in Centrax, with active phasing and head movements, indicating what's going on, called the preemption. This is expandable to detection. You could put a lot of different layers in here. This is a pretty basic setup for the intersection diagram. So similar to 2.0, it gives you that nice ease of being able to scroll and see what's happening.
So, the satellite imagery, is that imported automatically?
We would use your satellite imagery on your GIS service, so we just attach to that.
Okay, so and we can do that in both 2.0 and mobility?
Yeah.
Okay.
The last thing really on this page that I want to highlight is this detector faults, detector concerns portion. Something you highlighted earlier that I wanted to show here is this little icon off to the side. We can ignore a detector if we have a detector issue. Let's say this thing's popping up and it's telling me that I've got erratic counts on the phase 2 detector. Well, I know I've got guys out there working in the field. I know that the milling crew's gonna be out there this week, and the guys are out there next week. So I'm gonna set this ignore so that this doesn't pop up to when I want to start seeing it again. If it isn't fixed by tomorrow because Billy didn't get out there, I want you to re-notify me. Otherwise, just continue to ignore it so it doesn't cloud my vision as I'm looking at the server page.
Going back to the map question that you just had, you can overlay multiple maps. And one of the maps that I really like overlaying would be a web map service for weather information. So you got the hurricane spinning off the Gulf and it's heading towards you. You can overlay those clouds on top of your signal map and get an idea when that's weather is wrong. So
Right here where it says system performance, if I were to pull down these 3 dots, I can add and edit and take different maps out here. So I can have different setups for different, if I want to just zoom into one intersection and see how close all it's not, I can scroll through real quick and just populate right in. Relatively easy to set up and manipulate. I should have prefaced this. I am looking at live systems right now. These are read-only purposes for me, but I'm not going to be manipulating their front panels or adding feature views like that, which is like kind of show you. Now I do have an iteration that is a demo site. It doesn't show the functionality and how this actually looks day to day because there are no detector values coming into it. If we wanted to scroll over there and look for some things that we can change, that's perfectly fine to play in, especially during the hands-on portion. Moving on from there, I'm going to touch on metrics real quick. We've already gone over the fact that there's a bunch of metrics that this platform can pull. Out here to the right, you see the list as I scroll down in alphabetical order. These we came up with on ourselves. Some of these are industry standard metrics that somebody might want, and some of these are specific customer requests. Not all entities have access or available detection for all of the different metrics. We haven't listed all out here, but depending on what they use is what they're going to set up. Let's go ahead and pull a daily split failure report real quick. Same Lucy. Intersections. And here you can see a nice graphical layout where you can zoom and hover and select and turn on and off and really organize your data as you'd like. We do have a couple different views here. This one's just showing the total, but there is a list view and a tab view. You have multiple phases that are being shown at the same time.
can you bring up grid light really? Then PCB. This red light?
Yes, sir.
The red light running is looking at your red occupancy ratio the first 5 seconds after the termination of green to see what your occupancy is at those stop bar detection. And it's going to highlight for you where you might have potential safety issues at the intersections and what time of day you have those issues.
and Purdue coordination diagram. I think it's just a great diagram to give you just a nice visual representation of the volume of data that's available. This one generally pulls multiple different phases at the same time, and it's a ton of data.
So how are you using stop bar detection for red light running? Is it speed related?
We're looking at-
Presence just means that somebody's there when it's red.
Yeah, we're looking at the first 5 seconds after the termination of green. So we're checking that from that occupancy at that stop bar for those 5 seconds. If it's highly occupied, the likelihood of red light running is the potential.
And just the reason I ask is we have a ton of intersections that are over capacity. There's absolutely a car there the second that goes to red.
Which would indicate a split failure, which also indicates potential for red light running.
Okay.
Absolutely. Have you all seen the Purdue coordination diagram? Okay, all right, so you're familiar with this, but each black dot represents a vehicle arrival, and you can hover over those black dots and see when that vehicle actually arrived, but not license plate, so no personally identifiable information. So this is just coming from the detection itself. I love this chart because it communicates just a tremendous amount of information. You can see where you're running coordination, and then you can see where your timing plans actually stop and end.
It is, and I like this feature down at the bottom. Typically, these things are displayed in the 24-hour period. But we've got the one all the way to 8 a.m. So we really see not only the peaks of the midday and the volume as it goes through the middle of the day, and what it does afterwards and how it sends in the next morning. It's kind of a nice visual as opposed to just looking at one day, seeing the second half, the first half of the next day as that starts to ramp back up. We come out of the free operation.
Essentially, actually, this is Port St. Lucie, right?
It is Port St.
So
Lucie.
you got a very short green time in comparison to red on the main line. That's interesting. Or maybe it's an 8 phase.
And here's the stacking ability I talked about earlier. Obviously, we've got some information at the top here to tell us what we're looking at. This is phase 2 south. If I scroll down, I've got 6 north there. If I can organize these by tabs as well, if I prefer. And that way I can just rotate through each tab.
You can also do more than one intersection. Same.
Yes, in multiple different tabs. Yes. I think there's a reality when we start looking at SPMs, regardless of who you're buying your performance measures from. There becomes a very real problem. That very real problem is SPMs are great at telling you where you've got problems, but if you don't have the resources, so the financial resources, the personnel resources to fix those problems, we've actually created a problem for you because we've told you got a problem, but you don't have any resources to do anything about it. So how do you defend that? It's a difficult position to put customers in. Which is why I think elevating our SPMs into something that's actionable, the timing plans, something that you can actually make an improvement. It's not just sharing knowledge with you that, hey, you got a problem, but it's giving you the tools and resources to do something about those problems.
The pattern optimizer.
Yes.
So looking at delay here, I just wanted to pick one that had multiple phases associated. So some of our metrics are only going to be for Main Street. Some of them require advanced detection. Main stop bar. There are other metrics we're going to have for side streets and left turns as well. So just a quick. So you can see how quick and user friendly this is for you to be able to just scroll through, or again, throw it into a list view. Scroll down. Nice comparison to it.
It's actually interesting that the SPMs developed by Purdue University originally back early. And I'm a Purdue grad, but it's after me. They did a tremendous job, but it's very detection heavy. A lot of agencies don't have a lot of detection, and it's very expensive. But Darcy Bullock at Purdue's recently come up with using crowdsourced data to develop SPMs in a very, very similar fashion without any detection. So it provides agencies some compelling information. Now, being able to turn that into a timing plan with that type of data is a little bit more problematic. But I want to work with Darcy here over the next couple of months and some of these grant opportunities to see if we can't explore not only how to bring it over into mobility, detection list SPMs, but to use it potentially for timing plans. That's getting a little bit off on the edge, but it's an interesting problem to look at.
So do you guys partner to go after some of these grants?
Oh, yeah.
Do you bring in local agencies into some of those?
Absolutely.
we've got, the universities that are typically going out for the grants. Hawaii's been doing a tremendous amount of work and they're partnering with Oak Ridge National Labs, we're working with them. Auburn University, obviously Purdue University, CPI, University of Arizona, Alabama, that's right, Dr. Hayner. And what's the university in South Florida that we're working with? Dr. Haiti, yeah, Dr. Haiti.
So under the same tab, moving back into the reports available here. I'm just going to touch on a couple more of these that I think are important. This transition is pretty nice. Gives us our total time to average. If we dive into it, we can see per signal some of the same data there. So if you've got a signal that's in transition a bunch and you need to go investigate it, it's right at your fingertips. Pre-up the same deal. This is going to give us our total amount of requests per pattern, per corridor. And then if we drill down in there, we're going to see if there are any preempts where they were. So Dalton Avenue had 6 for a total time of 5 minutes and 47 seconds for the experience underneath. So kind of cool, good information here. We'll touch on this real quick, and this is a feature available in 2.0 that we typically go through that. There are some customers that are starting to utilize these out here on the side. We do have the alert log, system activity and events that we can pull up here. So we wanted to know if somebody's been in and out of the system, logging in, we can keep track of some of that stuff. We're continuing to work with our clients that want to use this platform as an ATMS. We do have clients that just need a little control and a little visibility, not quite to the extent that Hillsborough County needs. They just want to see if it's in flash or if it's in free and be able to test some of those little metrics. So this is working really well for that. Now, compare tool. We're on to it. Let's look at the compare tool before we go into optimization. Okay. So the compare tool is very powerful. It allows us to select different date ranges. It allows us to select different date ranges and as many signals as we like. I alluded to this earlier, this customization. That's right. So we set the first date range. I'm going to go ahead and select the 8th through the 15th. I just want to see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because I'm looking to mess with that pattern 1. Select the 15th. 22nd here. Same thing. I'm looking for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll apply that and then we'll have some values here that we can dive into. So selecting each one of the patterns, we can scroll through and see arrivals on green, arrivals on red. All of these columns are collapsible and you can bring it back. You can customize the setup as much as you like. What I really like about this is the legend and the color indicators. So we go through and parse all this data, but it's a lot of numbers and a lot of lines to look at. What we've done is a really nice job of highlighting either a positive difference or a negative difference as it compares to 1 and week 2, or we take day 1 and day 2 or month 1 and month 2. So this is an overall kind of a comparison tool that really allows you to dive in and see what you need here. This is the add remover columns part here. I really like the customization of this being able to tilt the stuff and put that. I gotta mess with their system too much. Won't get in trouble. Does this help or give any kind of a? I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly, so that I can answer it as best as possible. And I don't know if this helps with any of this.
I think that's just parsing the data, but I don't see where the difference is calculated. Like, so say you had, we're going to one of the columns, arrivals on green count for your first data set versus your second data set, show the difference between them. Otherwise, how are you comparing the data? Like, where's the comparison?
Well, the comparison for arrivals on green would be, you're mostly looking at a percent for that. So I'd be looking for my arrivals on green too.
So where's your like negative percentage or positive percentage to compare between the two? That would be your delta between your first data set and your second data. That's what you're doing, right? You're trying to compare the settings or the conditions of the first data set versus the second. See if you tried something different, what was the effect? Was it a positive effect or a negative effect?
Or no effects. And I think what's being represented here is if there's no effects, there's no line. If there is an effect, positive or negative, we're trying to call that out, but we're not calculating the differences. The way we've decided to look at the data was to look at one number versus the other. If it was significant, as defined by the significance defined by the user on the setups tab, to highlight where the differences are versus calculating those differences.
So in that one, the line divides, so A is worse than 2, that's why we have the purple line there. Yes.
Yes, so purple line equals a negative difference is relatively small, actually tiny in this case, or perhaps it's a small one.
So I see, I guess it is kind of giving, it's just more of a visual representation of what I'm asking for, just not the raw number.
And you want the quantified number, you would like perhaps outside of pedestrian delay here, there's a difference of, let's say, 2 minutes and 30 seconds there. You'd like that quantified outside of it to say, 10 minutes and 30 second improvement,
Yeah,
90%.
but then you can track those differences as a separate metric and then compare them over time and start running your trend and what's working, what's not working. Because obviously the data is there, it's making us comparisons, so you're just next step.
Do we have that now, though, like pedestrian delay? That's a trick. So, so
We do.
what does that mean? That means that's how long the pedestrian.
They push the button.
I was actually asking that thing. Okay.
Yeah. We can pull that back.
There are technologies where you can actually count the pedestrians at the corner waiting, and then aggregate the total pedestrian delay. But it's expensive to get the visual perception there.
Detect how many are there. What about, something I've asked about Will is like, what do we know where we're getting those pedestrian calls throughout the day? Is that something we do today? How would this?
It has a detection for that. It's not an appendix, the button. So if you go downtown, or wait, well, there's no buttons down there. Say there was a button downstairs. I'm gonna hit the button. The rest of the room's not gonna hit the button, so we're not gonna get accounts of this.
At least tell us what intersections, are getting.
You can see, yeah, the most pet actuations.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that, but you wouldn't get an accurate count of how many
Right.
people were actually around. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll scroll back to compare for just a second in case there's anything else here.
Or you could be crossing the room, just play over the button 15 times. I'm sure you have. Stop doing that. You're breaking my buttons. That's maybe going faster.
I had
It does.
I had a kid decide to do this in the fire. It just sat there, hit the button, hit the button, hit the button. I said, you pay attention.
Was he doing
You
it?
turn it off, you turn it off. I
Right.
was just like, no, I was just messing up. He was like, no, I don't know. I don't know. I told him about it. Of course, I didn't leave him with that.
Better not better leave her behind.
It wasn't.
Source it was.
Any more questions? Any more questions on the compare side? Which so let's roll right into the pattern optimizer. That's the next icon on the left-hand side here.
Are you gonna go to Lancaster for that?
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah. Yes. Let's go.
Sending them for demonstration and,
Well, you go to Lancaster, I want to extrapolate any question about grants opportunities. Obviously, we couldn't, V2X is coming due next Wednesday and the Attain grants due on February 2nd. But some significant activity going on with the grants right now, particularly with the infrastructure money that's out there. We've got a patent that we've held since 2016. And we're actually using that patent to leverage in-kind management from Econolite with the University of Auburn right now and Hawaii. It provides a pretty interesting opportunity because it limits the amount of cash or contribution the agencies that we're partnering with have to come up with as well. So I'd love to talk to you about that after this procurement.
So we rolled over to Lancaster, Ohio. There's different levels that agencies use this pattern optimizer tool. A lot of our agencies will view it, maybe take those changes outside of it. They don't necessarily apply it every week. They just want to kind of see what it's suggesting and maybe they take some of those changes. Lancaster does use the push down feature, at least sometimes for some of their patterns. So this is a good place for me to show you what we want it to do. Well, I'll let you say it. You've got the best for this. Give me the done did it here.
All right, we're going to tell you how you're doing. We're gonna tell you how you would do if you did it, and then we're gonna tell you how you done did it after you done did it.
So clicking into this specific corridor here that is outlined, you can see that weekly this is running in the background, right? So we're getting a highlighted run date out here on the side with an analysis period and exactly what we're looking for. If you don't want it to look to cycle or to optimize the splits, you're fine with your splits for some reason, you turn that feature off and just let it do offset and cycle. Vice versa, you can take this down as little as you like. So let me see here, let's go. Okay, I want to show you this one. So this one with the checkout here, this is an outcome succeeded. So all these other ones, it's generated. They didn't do anything with it. They looked at it, maybe they took a piece of it out and did it on their own, but they didn't push down the whole pattern. So let's roll into here and see what that looks like. Yeah, pattern sheet reader as well. So again, up at the top gives us the generated on the period that we're looking at. We've got that nice easy button with the controller commands. And then the site admin options up there. A nice summary for southbound and northbound average delay with the program, the actual, the initial, the predicted, and then the outcome. You can see here, and I'm gonna have to scroll over a bit.
So in that instance, you are showing the difference in the percentage of the delay. So you did do the calculations on that one.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it for just to compare, right? But we certainly do it for the pattern optimizer. It's gonna actually be suggested patterns. So I scroll this, okay, that this screen be something. Is it okay if I zoom this out a little bit? Is that too small for everybody to see, or is that okay? For me. It's okay. All right, I'm gonna do that for this little easier with all this data. So starting up here at the top, I wanna hone in on some of the changes and some of the indicators we have. With that first intersection, it's looking at the cycle length, but it liked it. It didn't want to change the cycle length, so it didn't make any suggestions. Any suggestions would be highlighted with that yellow orange color. So in this first intersection, it wants to increase my offset by 3 seconds. It wants to modify my 2-4 and my 5-6 splits. It does give you some predictive results out here. Let's go back up here. So we have the initial, we have what was programmed and what the actual was. And then some results out to the side here. So it's really kind of an inclusive look at your optimization, at your background and plan.
If we going back up and take just a little bit more time there, I don't want to miss that point. Scroll back over to the right. The initial is your before. The initial is your before. The predicted is what the model thinks, and the outcome is your after.
One really quick question on that point. As you take your predicted and your actual measured outcomes, are you using that data to enhance your model and make it smarter over time?
From a machine learning perspective, not at this point in time, but it's on the roadmap for all sorts of different ML type activities. So an interesting point.
So initial predicted is
Predicted is what the model results.
and that's a reduction in delay.
That is a reduction in travel delay. Yeah.
The outcome is what.
This is the after results of the activity.
And then this is what your summation, a summary of what it actually did. So in that first instance, we predicted it would drop by 63%, turns out it was 58%. So it gives you kind of like that nice compared to what going back to the comparison. Did this work? How well did it work based on what this bot could do?
So the optimizer is, something that beyond like those purview diagrams. You're just kind of looking at the result, the data and the metrics, and then you've got to try to come up with as an operator, what do I want to do about it? This gives you suggestions on what you can do.
So it takes to that next step as opposed to you deciphering and looking through all that data and putting it all in an Excel and formulating it all. It's just doing it for you in the background. It's using pivot, it's using the Purdue coordination diagram, the rifle sign green, the rifle sign red, occupancy ratios, +5 for red. So there's a bunch of different parameters that go into each one of the metrics. We may not use all of those for each one, but there's an agreed upon kind of established. So you can somebody who knows, engineering algorithms and engineering techniques that can be used to determine that stuff. So that's what And that's, again, I gotta give it to our developers at Econolite. I mean, we took a look at this SPM data. We did the enumerations with Darcy Bullock in 2010. We established all those 125 different enumerations. Then we quickly said, what can we do with this beyond just give somebody another graph? Graphs are great. Graphs tell us exactly what we need to do. If we gotta go to commissioner, it's awesome to take a graph. But as an engineer, what do I need to do next? So from there, pattern optimizer. I'm gonna roll into adaptive. Adaptive is gonna be an optional portion of the submission for you guys. This is not right up front, but this is gonna be something that you could have.
Sean, can you, before you,
Just to clarify with everybody in the room that doesn't speak traffic language, this is a great feature. It's a great tool, but it doesn't work without a significant investment in detection, installation, and also maintenance.
Coverage.
Right.
You need good detection. Yep, you do need good detection. And I don't think we went over that in the slides. My slides got dumbed down from my typical presentation. So you can get SPMs with no detection, right? Minimal. You know when your cycle starts, you know when your green starts, you can do some minimal stuff. If you just have stop bar, again, you can add some more, but really to get it all, lane by lane, stop bar, lane by lane, advanced on the streets. That's where you're going to be able to take advantage of the majority of all the metrics that are available.
the tool does try to, if you've got a detector that is being identified as anomalous, it's chattering, it's not reporting any data, we will try to bridge over that detection. We're also going to identify, you got a detector that's bad. But we're going to try to bridge over until such time as that's fixed. If you get X number of detectors busted in X number of lanes or Y number of lanes, then it's going to say, hey, I don't have enough data.
So if there's 4 lanes and only 3 of them are working, they get extrapolated out for that 4th lane and maybe create an average from the 3 that are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like the way to go in the future is instead of relying on necessarily the hardware sensors, it's just to use artificial intelligence with your CCTV.
We are. We absolutely are. And especially with technologies like the video analytics that we're building into the vision processor. We've got an Evo processor out there that's got a nice edge element to it as well. And can see 900 feet out, so we can get beyond the queue, reducing the total cost of detection. And then, technologies out there like Dirk are doing some incredible data or video analytics as well. It's in LiDAR technologies, Bosch. Every sensor on a vehicle now has a Bosch sensor on it, and if it's a video sensor, they're storing all that data. And I'd love to get access to it and see what I might be able to do to minimize the total cost of detection.
Some detection systems already use camera as the main sensor. I'm just saying with AI, though, you can do every single one of those things with just your CCTV. I'm running AI at night. I can tell you where my neighbors walk their dog.
We're into 70 minutes into the demonstration, which was supposed to include the 5 hands-on, and I know we've done questions and answers. I just want to get everybody back on track. This is your demonstration and your.
How much? When do you want us out of here? Noon? Before?
We should be tied up at like 11:45 with everything, for this.
Okay, I'm gonna do 5 more. I'm gonna do 5 more, and then we can allow the 10-15 for questions and answers. I think that's applicable. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was hands-on
I can shorten these
demonstration.
down to
there as well, so.
or I could dive deep in them. So, okay, so let's talk adaptive real quick then, since we're on this. This obviously pulling up different patterns here associated with adaptive. We'll go ahead and go into check out what that exactly means. We're looking to optimize cycle offset split again here. We've got all of the signals laid out up top with the last time that they proceeded upload time. So down here is where the meat and potatoes comes in. We've got, and this can be once and I should specify here because you're going to see time sets. So we're going to negate what I said earlier. You can do this once every 3 cycles. You can do this once every 20. You can do this once a day. You wouldn't want to do that, but you understand my point. It's totally customizable. So if we select one, let's just pull up the latest version here. This is a really cool graphic that tells you exactly what it did. You can run this in control mode, or you can run this in analysis mode. So if you set the system up, you run an analysis mode for 6 to 8 weeks first, you come in here and check it and say, that makes sense to me, or no, that's crazy. Maybe I have a detector issue here. Maybe something's unset. So this display that summarizes what pattern we're in, what changes we're making is really cool. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I say every 3rd cycle is when they're going to make a cycle like change. So let's go one more here. And it looks like they didn't even have this like change. But let's keep going. There it is. So once every 3 cycles, if the view is changing, they're gonna change. And you can see, we're talking about a second here, right? I mean, offset, we're moving offsets a lot, but the cycle length, this iteration is just a second. Some of these splits are just a minimum of seconds. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see my splits and my offset or my cycle length jumping by a big amount. This should be little incremental changes. Now, as far as where the offset goes, that's negotiable, but I like to see these little 5-second changes. So what happens if it can't work? What happens if we have a problem? It tries to implement and it comes up with this yellow and says we've got warnings. So we'll click on it. It's not ready to optimize. The signals are 10 to 15 minutes behind in data collection and processing, specifically PSL. So it just held on to what it had. I'm gonna try again in 3 cycles. It tried again in 3 cycles. It was successful. Everything's cool. And it kept rolling down the line.
Now, when it's choosing these cycle lengths, is it pulling the detections from intersections upstream? Is it relying solely on the detection at the intersection? Because some adaptive, they
It's not anything.
have issues with adding on every light cycle. Like, okay, well, I saw 10 cars left, so I'm gonna add time for 20 cars. Okay, there's still 10 cars left, so now I'm gonna add time. Okay, well, 15 minutes later, you're still not getting everybody through. So how does that work for your adaptive?
So it is looking at upstream and downstream, the corridor as an entirety and trying to do a time that entire corridor. So it's not just independent signals operating in their coordination constraints independent of each other. It's looking for downstream. Yes. Good point though. Good call, because there are other systems out there that don't do that and that are not as near as efficient. Okay, so we'll probably move on from adaptive here.
Let's do some hands-on.
Yeah, we do need to do some hands-on. I wanted to show device status very quickly. I'm gonna roll through this. This would be, again, one of those ATMS function features we're talking about. This access to the launch database editor in the front panel, and it gives us our nice COM status and what kind of pattern we're in here. All right, last and final thing, this is included with, this is not an optional element. This is included in the essentials package for mobility here. Plus Detect, this works with our vision camera, our Ego radar, to give you a nice display, snapshots of what's going on in the field, an indicator if you have any intersections that might be down. If I was to select one of these, I would get a nice layout of the camera. If I can go to a quad view here, I can see what my detection is doing, where I sit within the cycle on that, or the displays on that at that specific instance, and then scroll down to see if any might be offline. So this is a really good indicator if I have any, maybe I just have one zone that's been misaligned for some reason, or something that's set up quite correctly and it's getting intermittent issues. I can come on here and kind of validate them. Because we love metrics, we love everything data. This has an entire data set available for both the Ego and the vision. So we can do TMCs here. A lot of them are very similar to what we've been able to use in the past. I'm sorry, what we use with the SPMs, but the TMCs are very different. So let's see if I can pull them up really. Okay, so this is what our TMC looks like. We are able to manipulate the timeframes at the beginning of this. We can select multiple signals, select different days, and this gives us our AM, midday, PM peaks with our peak and volume data right there. Pretty easy to do. So some nice feature function. Similarly, if I just click on a intersection out to the left there, as I did quickly, it will pull up an even bigger picture of a screenshot, and then it gives me the snapshot of right now. TMCs are what they are right now. So, see, we only have AM and midday peak here because we haven't got to the PM. Okay, there are some other features and functions on here. We've covered the majority of the basics, and I think what would be really, at least initially, important for Hillsborough County if you were to select this. So I would invite you to have a hands-on, play with this computer, play with the controllers, ask questions.
I'm fine the demonstration aspect in lieu of the hands-on, the actual hands-on, like me getting on a computer as opposed to you actually, hey, show me how to do this and let me see how easily it works. I wouldn't, ask the other committee members, but you guys like to actually sit down at the laptop and drive, during my question and answer session.
I'm good.
I'd say yourself, Brian.
Yeah,
I don't have the reason to.
yeah, I mean, as far as me literally getting on a laptop, I don't think that's necessarily, that's needed, but I do have a couple other questions that I'd like to address, before we adjourn. So if you don't mind, let me just ask those and maybe you can just demonstrate,
Yes, sir.
how that works.
Sure.
First and foremost, can you describe and demonstrate any unique features that allow for programming flexibility within the controller itself? So, that may be, overlap programming, yeah, multiple, multiple phase outputs on the detection channel, anything that's outside of the normal controller programming that would allow for increased flexibility.
Certainly had a couple answers coming to head, but I want to throw this to everybody on the phone because we've got some specialists on the phone. I think they're going to answer that question.
The flashing yellow arrow come to mind, but is Ron still on?
Yeah, Ron or Alan.
Ron or Alan.
Hold on.
or Douglas.
Hey, yeah, I'm here. Yeah,
What's what do you like about EOS that's easiest to set up, most flexible?
The easiest thing I find is the flashing yellow. Our flashing yellow arrow setup is, I think, the easiest in the industry. The other thing too is and I think William just mentioned multiple using a detector to call multiple phases is super simple. I know some of our competitors have issues with that. The Hawk is very easy. There is a little bit of just a minor bit, a little bit of mapping to get the extra flash, the wig, but super easy to program. Yeah, Texas Diamond. That's also another fairly easy thing to do. It can be complicated, but it is built in.
It's probably a pretty good list, Ron.
Yes. Hey, Ron, if you don't mind me asking, I've heard of it in the industry. I can't remember exactly where I heard of it. But do you guys have a feature at all that allows me to assign different phases to a single load switch? So maybe a green output for a different phase on the same load switch?
Okay, let me get my head wrapped around that.
Some crazy questions.
Well, I would think, I mean, that's kind of would be like an overlap. I would think.
Yes, it would most likely be an overlap.
Yeah, I mean,
Just think without
our,
hardwiring. Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
And
I mean,
and-
our
and
overlap.
Not tripping the MMU.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
how would you assign multiple
So-
phases that could jump the ring and barrier basically?
Yeah, so could I just assign the load switch one to produce a green output for, say, phase 1 and phase 9 separately? As long as it's not violating ring and barrier.
Without being hardwired.
I would think so. And that brings up another feature that we built into. Sorry to divert a little bit, but we actually built in double serve phases where you can actually double serve left turns. Extremely easy setup.
Okay, so you're talking about
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Could you describe that briefly, Ron?
Yeah. So if you have say you have a normal operation, phase 1 and 5, then 2 and 6, then 3 and 7, 4 and 8. So if you have 1 and 5, and let's say you have a phase 1 that gets really backed up. Well, after 2 and 6, you can have one come up again. In elite, come up again, or 1 and 5 come up again, either way, to clear those. And it's extremely easy to set up. You do have to create a channel 9 in the sequence, but it's just a simple setting in the controller otherwise. Very,
Well,
very
I
easy.
I think you may be talking about what I'm asking, and maybe I just didn't
Yeah,
ask the
yes.
question in the correct way.
Yeah, you steered me right to it, so that was perfect. Yes.
Okay, no, I'm good with that. Just wanted to ask that question.
I do have a question, so.
Mhm.
It's. Not completely approved by FHWA, but we have hybrid pedestrian. Mid-block crossing beacons now, that
Mhm.
look like a traffic signal, but operate like a hawk.
Mhm.
How easy would that be to program in one of your controllers without me having, because currently I have to use about 15 logic statements. Is there an easier way in Centrax to make that happen? So basically, the signal rests in green.
Yeah.
But then when the peg comes up, it flashes red like a hawk.
Yeah, I do that with probably, I did a similar, I did a similar one with with actually flashing yellow arrows on the main street. And I think I used 2 logic statements. It
Yeah, because
was,
we do have to add the flashing yellow arrow when it's 2-stage for these applications, because you have your left turn trap.
actually, I did one in Pasco County, and I believe it's installed now, and I programmed it,
There's one in
and
Pasco, yeah.
yes, it's the one just south of Main Street, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
That's fine.
Yeah, I programmed that. I think I have 2 or 3 logic statements in there, tops.
Okay.
Yeah, super easy. Yeah, I did it in about 15 minutes. So, yeah.
We're coming up against a time crunch here, guys, so I just want to for you, Cal, to do one last demonstration. Can you demonstrate for me how easy it is? And we're just gonna stick with a single intersection. If I got an intersection and I need to make cycle offset split changes immediately. Show me how easy that is to do. Maybe I want to drop it in the free operation. Maybe I want to adjust the cycle length, the splits. Maybe I don't want to violate the pad, things of that nature. How easy is it to take that intersection from what's currently running and make changes to what's running out in the field?
Do the manual command for free, and then do a manual command, put a new timing plan in. If you wanted to change the cycle, it's never been in the controller database before, you'd have to go to the database and you'd have to put the new cycle in there.
Okay, so I would need to open up the database, adjust it, and basically create another pattern. Okay.
Or modify the existing pattern, just modify that.
Okay.
Yeah, creating a new pattern with cycle offsets, but now you can use the template. Obviously carry over a lot of the other data.
But if that plan is pre-baked someplace, and you wanted to manually create it versus relying upon pattern optimization or adaptive to do it, you'd have to manually create that database someplace.
So is that COS?
We want to go to our stuff at, it's 11:45 and.
We do have the COS module. But we can put that implementation on here. Feature, if you remember the COS feature, next to the for panel for example. That could absolutely be.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention it from previous experience. I want you guys to kind of come out with it for, everybody.
And that's a great point. And I'll just say this real quick. Econolite is really good about being this big, vast company that has all these technological advances. But when a customer comes to us with a very specific need, we're able to tailor to that need and then tailor further iterations of Centrax to encompass it. So some people, that was a one-off. COS feature was a one-off between Hickory and the city of Tampa. We were able to make that work on that version, which is sequential versions going on.
Yeah, Will wants to extend this for 10 minutes, and as long as he does that for the other vendors, can do that. If you feel like you need more time,
Yeah.
want some.
My person just to stick to the original stated guideline.
Yeah.
I think we're good. I think we got the majority of the information that we needed. So I think we're okay.
So does that conclude your questions?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for presenting today, and I'm gonna go ahead and conclude this meeting.